these words, a luminous gold light appeared from between his eyebrows. Then, a round relic shot forth from this shining light. As this relic appeared, it flashed with a golden light, piercing through all shrouds. This light was like a materialized sword, cutting through all. It's the Lotus Heart Bow Die. Hang Kai actually has the Lotus Heart Bow Die within him. No wonder he's so fierce. In the honored seating section, there were several old men who immediately recognized this golden relic, the Lotus Heart Bow Die. Amazing. Amazing. In the myths, the Lotus Heart Bow Die is the reincarnated martyr soul of a Buddha. Every appearance is the new birth of a living Buddha. No wonder the low-profile Mount Potala would actually send a direct disciple to join the first martial meeting this time. They likely wish to have Hang Kai gain more experience so that he can become the third Empire Ian of Mount Potala in the future. This is incredible. One has a phoenix true form, one has the Lotus Heart Bow Die, one is the Saintess of Divine Dream Heavenly Palace. Moreover, there are also 3 more individuals that come from non-Empire Ian backgrounds, and yet they are all youths with monstrous talent. Of those 6, any one of them could be a hero that dominates their era, but now all of them have gathered here. Lin Ming doesn't have a chance. Hang Kai's talent isn't much worse, not to mention he's also cultivated for a longer time. This so-called Buddha martyr soul was a legend spread down in the Buddhist faith. Some people speculated that there was an individual of the Buddhist faith who had reached levels of strength surpassing an Empire Ian. Later, when he died in repose, his bones condensed into multiple relics. These relics were the Lotus Heart Bow Die. These relics were incomparably mysterious. They would accompany some Buddhist disciples with extraordinarily high wisdom from birth, following them as they came out of their mother's womb. Each Buddhist disciple that possessed a Lotus Heart Buddha was considered the reincarnation of a Buddha. As these disciples grew up, they could refine these relics into their very bodies to stabilize their inner world. Those Buddhist disciples that possessed the Lotus Heart Bow Die might only appear every 10 million years or tens of millions of years. They were incomparably rare. Unless these people perished on their road, they would become eminent monks of their generation, Empire Ian level powerhouses. Hang Kai possessed the Lotus Heart Bow Die, and he was also diligent and hardworking. It was no surprise that his strength was at this level. Out of all the juniors, besides Frost Dream, there was no one able to challenge him. Benefactor Lin, you have forced this poor monk to put forth the Lotus Heart Bow Die. That is already this poor monk's last resort. With the Lotus Heart Bow Die stabilizing the Samsara domain, the might of the Samsara domain will increase several times. I fear that Benefactor Lin will no longer have the chance to see through it. As Hang Kai spoke, the Lotus Heart Bow Die flew out from between his eyebrows and into the 8-sectioned stupa, mounting itself at the top of the pagoda. In that instant, the 8-sectioned stupa's 8 gods began to release a flaming brilliance. The 8-sectioned stupa began pushing down on Lin Ming. Ka. The 8-sectioned stupa crashed into the Grand Mist Space. The Grand Mist Space emitted overwhelming explosive sounds as all the blood within Lin Ming's chest began to tumble. Even though he was facing Hang Kai with everything he had, he was still inferior. Bang! With a detonating sound, the Grand Mist Space was shattered by the 8-sectioned stupa. However, the Grand Mist Space was still atop transcendent divine might. As the 8-sectioned stupa broke into the Grand Mist Space, its own light dimmed down at the same time. Samsara domain opened to the limit. The massive wheel of Samsara spun behind Hang Kai without the shelter of the Grand Mist Space. Lin Ming was placed directly within the Samsara domain, forced to withstand the power of Samsara. A tremendous amount of the power of Samsara as well as endless grudges rushed into Lin Ming's spiritual sea. His body shook as a tearing pain distorted his spiritual sea, nearly making him faint. Awaken. Lin Ming grit his teeth. Within his spiritual sea, a swirling black vortex appeared. This was the Samsara martial intent. To use the minor Samsara path to resist Hang Kai's transcendent divine might. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Within Lin Ming's spiritual sea, the wheel of Samsara appeared, pushing down on that black vortex. The wheel of Samsara was over 10 times larger than Lin Ming's Samsara martial intent. Within the center of the wheel of Samsara stood Hang Kai's will phantom. Break. Hang Kai said in a soft voice. The wheel of Samsara slammed into the black vortex within Lin Ming's spiritual sea. A completely disproportionate collision occurred, giving a feeling of near imminent collapse. But at this moment, several law runes began to appear from within Lin Ming's spiritual sea. These law runes were the Divine Dream Marks. The Divine Dream Marks landed on the black vortex, forcefully propping it up. Millimeter. Hang Kai was startled. He originally thought he would win here, but he never imagined that Lin Ming's soul would be so tenacious. It was harder to suppress him than he thought. Kaila. Within Lin Ming's spiritual sea, the wheel of Samsara and the black vortex struck each other, causing endless thunder to appear. Hang Kai began to pray with Buddhist sutras. From between his eyebrows, the Lotus Heart Bow Die shined with a brilliant light. The 8-sectioned stupa came crashing down again. The Samsara vortex was at its breaking point. Of Lin Ming's 3 cultivation systems of essence, energy, and divine, his soul-forging laws were the weakest. He had only practiced it for several months of time, and now he was being forced to use the minor Samsara path to resist the wheel of Samsara. It was naturally lacking. Moreover, Hang Kai had also resorted to using the Lotus Heart Bow Die. Lin Ming held on with all his strength. He felt an excruciating pain in his soul, and even the will form he manifested in his spiritual sea began to distort. It was clear that he was withstanding a tremendous amount of pressure. Underneath this pressure, all sorts of illusions appeared in Lin Ming's mind. At one moment he returned to his times as a common mortal. He was back with his parents. He married the princess of Sky Fortune Kingdom, he performed countless merits on the battlefield, and he was the idol of the people. At another time, he had reached the divine realm, and because of the secret of the magic cube, he was hunted down by innumerable powerhouses. With no way out, he was placed in a despairing situation. There was even a time when his martial arts had been crippled by others. He was captured by his enemies and forced to endure endless tortures. Each potential false lifetime rapidly passed through Lin Ming's consciousness. Although he knew these were all illusions, it was still difficult for him to wake up. This was the wheel of Samsara's 100 cycles of Samsara. In each Samsara, every life was different. It was nearly impossible to separate reality and fantasy. Lin Ming was lost within this confusing flow of life. It was as if time had lost all meaning. He had fallen into a long dream of Samsara. Although he could maintain his ego, he wasn't able to wake himself up from this dream. But among all these dreams, there was one that shocked Lin Ming. In this dream, he had returned to the glorious epoch of the divine realm 3.6 billion years ago. He created his own heavenly palace, ruled the world, and resisted the great calamity to bring about an everlasting future. At a novel being at. He had seen this somewhere before. When Lin Ming climbed up the 33rd step of the divine seal altar, he had experienced a dream. Because of this dream, he had been sent into a deep sleep for over a month. The disciples of the ancient Phoenix clan, as well as Huo Violencestone, Shinzing Swan, and Mu Chinayu, had all been scared for him. But now, that dream had reappeared. And compared to before, it was even more lifelike. Lin Ming became increasingly convinced that these were the runes that Empire Ian Divine Seal had planted into his body, soul, and inner world. These runes contained Empire Ian Divine Seal's memories as well as some comprehensions of laws. While Lin Ming was experiencing 100 Samsaras, these dream memories turned into one of his lives. Among the haze, Lin Ming arrived at a vast and boundless wild continent. This land exuded a horrifying aura, it was completely different from any central mainland of the divine realm. By just standing here, one could feel a faint pressure. This pressure didn't come from any powerhouses, but from the world itself. This was a world that possessed its own pressure. A tall man dressed in white robes stood above the wilderness. He looked up at the skies, his entire body exuding the aura of the great Tao. This aura gathered together, turning into Tao patterns that floated all around him. As Lin Ming saw these Tao patterns, he felt something familiar, as if he had seen them before. This is... Lin Ming's heart shook. These were the Tao patterns that Empire Ian Divine Seal had written down into his body when he climbed up the Divine Seal Altar's 33rd step. This series of Tao patterns gradually became clear in Lin Ming's mind. Inexplicably, all sorts of comprehensions emerged within Lin Ming's mind. These comprehensions were not his own, but belonged to Empire Ian Divine Seal. As Lin Ming experienced Empire Ian Divine Seal's life, he also experienced his comprehension of the laws. On the Divine Seal Altar's 33rd step, these Tao patterns and runes were the most precious gifts that Empire Ian Divine Seal had granted him. As these Tao patterns appeared, the power of space and the power of time around this tall white-clothed man began to twist. These were Empire Ian Divine Seal's laws of space and time. In that moment, Lin Ming felt as if he had become Empire Ian Divine Seal, watching the circulation of laws. This sort of experience and realization was extremely mystical. These laws, these comprehensions, are they what Senior Divine Seal left to me? Before, after experiencing that dreamland on the Divine Seal altar, Lin Ming had been utterly exhausted, with his essence, energy, and divine having been completely overdrawn. Because of that he wasn't able to comprehend these laws. But now, his mind was alive and awake, and he was able to clearly see them. These were the law runes that Empire Ian Divine Seal had left in his body. Where was the superiority of an Empire Ian descendant? It wasn't just resources and talent. The most important factor was that they had great teachers. An Empire Ian teacher had comprehensions of the laws that surpassed the heavenly Tao. With such skilled teachers guiding them, how could Empire Ian descendants' progress not be quick? But before now, Lin Ming had never had a truly formidable master. Mo Eversnow was fierce, but her strength lay in her talent. In terms of cultivation, even during her peak state she still hadn't reached the World King realm. And now, Lin Ming had finally obtained the direction of a true Supreme Elder. Moreover, this person's strength had reached an unbelievable boundary. It was possible that he was the greatest powerhouse the Divine Realm had seen for the last 3.6 billion years. Not just that, but those Empire Ian descendants were only taught through oral lessons and jade slips. There were none among them who had a teacher who was willing to consume a portion of their soul in order to implant their life's law runes into their body. Tip, you can use left, right, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters.
Such a brave soul.
Martial World. Chapter 1315 Divine Seal Soul. Chapter 1315 Divine Seal Soul. Lin Ming isn't moving, was he defeated? Han Kai's Samsara domain is too strong. Losing to him is also reasonable. On the arena stage, Han Kai was standing atop the wheel of Samsara, floating high in the air. As for Lin Ming, he was wantonly covered in the power of Samsara within the Samsara domain, with strange Dao patterns spinning around him. As for what these Dao patterns meant, no one knew. From the look of things, Lin Ming had already lost consciousness. Was it over? Did Lin Ming's myth finally end here? Ever since the first martial meeting began, besides not achieving first place in the preliminaries, Lin Ming had been undefeated. No matter how strong his opponents were or how undefeatable they seemed, he had used incredible methods to erupt with an even greater power and terrifying endurance to defeat them. Xiao Moxian, Jun Blue Moon, and Dragon Fang were all defeated by him. Although many people knew that Han Kai's strength far surpassed Lin Ming's, they still subconsciously thought that Lin Ming's defeat was impossible. He already defies the heavens more than enough. For a disciple from an ordinary Holy Land background to reach this step is already amazing. Han Kai is too strong. He hasn't wasted almost 40 years of his life in vain. As everyone was speaking, Han Kai remained silent on the arena stage. As the one controlling the Wheel of Samsara, Han Kai could feel that from start to finish, his Wheel of Samsara had never thoroughly defeated Lin Ming. Lin Ming's soul was tenacious beyond imagination, and those strange divine dream marks had allowed his minor Samsara path to forcefully resist the Wheel of Samsara. Even though Han Kai had used the Lotus Heart Bow Die, he had only been able to suppress Lin Ming, he hadn't been able to utterly rout him. Although Lin Ming had fallen into the 100 cycles of Samsara, his consciousness had remained clear throughout. This sort of feeling was like a strong wind blowing through the tough summer grass. Although the wind could blow the grass down, it couldn't break it. By just missing this point, Han Kai didn't believe he had truly won. Rather, during their intense battle, Lin Ming had voluntarily given up his consciousness and fallen into the illusions of Samsara. As if he had given up all resistance. Han Kai silently looked at Lin Ming within the Samsara domain. There were law runes floating all around him, none of which he could understand. At this time, Vast Cosmos stepped onto the arena stage. He looked over Lin Ming carefully and then said to Han Kai, "The match has ended." Han Kai shook his head. "Senior Vast Cosmos, this junior's techniques haven't completely defeated Benefactor Lin's defenses. Rather, for some unknown reason, Benefactor Lin instead chose to surrender his soul defenses and fall into the Samsara domain to withstand the power of Samsara. No matter what the reasoning is, the fact is that you have won." After falling into the endless Samsaras, Lin Ming didn't have any ability to defend himself. If Han Kai wanted to claim victory, it would be extremely easy. Then let us wait a moment. I feel that Benefactor Lin may be making an unexpected breakthrough. Han Kai said. As a disciple of Mount Potala, Han Kai's natural character was one of kindness and gentle mercy. He didn't wish to win through something that wasn't the true martial path. Vast Cosmos hesitated for a moment and then nodded. "Very well. We shall wait for an incense stick of time. Little Master Han Kai's moral character is truly praiseworthy." Then, a strange scene occurred on the first martial meeting's arena stage. Han Kai dismissed the Wheel of Samsara and stood on the center of the stage, his fingers gathered together in prayer. As for Lin Ming, he was floating in the air, wrapped in a faint power of Samsara, with lightly glowing runes all around him. A disciple of Vast Universe Heavenly Palace lit a stick of incense. The incense stick slowly burned, grey smoke curling in the air. Why are they waiting? Isn't the battle over? I have no idea what's happening. It seems as if Lin Ming has encountered some strange condition, so they are waiting for him to wake up. He was struck by Han Kai's Wheel of Samsara, so it's likely difficult for him to wake up. His soul might have received some serious damage. The Wheel of Samsara was an offensive and defensive system. When Han Kai fought Xiao Moxian, he hadn't brought out the attack capabilities of the Wheel of Samsara. It was a completely different situation from now. Lin Ming had endured the attack of the Wheel of Samsara. Everyone was able to see just how terrifying the Wheel of Samsara's attacks were. Even someone as strong as Lin Ming, with a freakishly strong soul defense and mortal body, still lost consciousness with a single strike. The incense stick burnt down shorter and shorter. But, Lin Ming was still wrapped in a deep sleep, without any hint that he was regaining consciousness. Finally, the incense stick burnt all the way down. Vast Cosmos stepped onto the arena stage and announced the result of this match. In the audience, the young elites of Crimson Light World were all filled with regret. They were well aware that it was unavoidable for Lin Ming to lose to Han Kai, the difference was simply too great. But after arriving at such a step, they all still hoped that a miracle would occur. But in the end, there was no miracle at all. And on the ancient Phoenix clan's side, Huo Violentstone, Qinzing Swan, Mu Qinayu, and the others were all worried for Lin Ming's safety. Lin Ming's restorative ability was extremely strong, so how come he didn't wake up after an incense stick of time? Vast Cosmos looked at Han Kai and loudly proclaimed, "Han Kai, victory." This loud and clear sound spread through the entire arena. This also signaled the end of this match. Lin Ming had been defeated by Han Kai. Benefactor Lin seems to have encountered some accident. I ask Senior to look after him. Han Kai said as he recited some Buddhist chants. Vast Cosmos nodded. He raised his hand and Lin Ming's body came flying over. Vast Cosmos placed his palm on Lin Ming's forehead, wanting to investigate the current damage to his spiritual sea. But as he inspected Lin Ming, he frowned. Lin Ming's spiritual sea was covered with a dim white light. It was impossible to see through it. How strange. Vast Cosmos couldn't believe this. With his half-step Empyrean cultivation, he wasn't able to investigate the spiritual sea of a junior. What was going on here? Bring Lin Ming out of here and deliver him to a quiet room where he can rest. Look for Shinshanzi to see to him until I come over. Vast Universe Heavenly Palace's Shinshanzi had much higher attainments in the aspect of souls and spiritual seas than Vast Cosmos did. Several disciples of Vast Universe Heavenly Palace lifted up Lin Ming and brought him away. In this situation, many spectators could see that something was wrong. Lin Ming might have been seriously wounded. Novel being attacked. Mu Chinyu and Qinxing Swan both felt their hearts tighten. They were certainly worried about him, but they weren't able to go to the contestant area. Brother Lin Ming should be fine, right? How could that monk be so heavy-handed with his moves? Don't blame others. Our husband might have encountered some special circumstances. Don't forget, Lin Ming fell into a deep sleep for over a month after the Divine Seal altar. As Mu Chinyu spoke, the disciples of the ancient Phoenix clan were even more worried. If he really fell into a deep sleep like last time, then that wasn't a good sign at all. If he fell into a deep sleep again and again, that really might mean he had some particular soul damage. Senior apprentice Brother Lin wouldn't fall into a deep sleep more and more after this, right? What if he sleeps for longer and longer each time? A disciple whispered. Don't speak nonsense. Huo Violent Stone angrily said. His complexion was also somewhat solemn. After Lin Ming's loss, the tournament continued on. Xiao Moxian against Frost Dream. This was a long-awaited showdown. Even though there wasn't any suspense in the result, it was still a battle between the two most outstanding young girls in the entire Divine Realm. Both of these girls had their own unique flavor and were also the dream lovers of countless young elites. How could they not be heated for this battle? Many youths shouted until their throats were hoarse. However, the disciples of the ancient Phoenix clan had a perpetual malaise covering all of their hearts. That fellow, he's as fierce as a farm animal, so how could he be injured? Before stepping on stage, Xiao Moxian tilted her head, gazing on as Lin Ming was carried away to Vast Universe Heavenly Palace. At this time, in a resting room of Vast Universe Heavenly Palace, an old man with a long beard and a floppy hat was probing Lin Ming's spiritual sea, his eyebrows wrinkled. Senior Shinshanzi, what's the situation? A youth asked. He was Vast Cosmos's apprentice and a core disciple of Vast Universe Heavenly Palace. I cannot be sure. There are some strange runes and lines covering Lin Ming's spiritual sea. This old man is too unlearned and ignorant. I have never seen anything like it before. What do we do? Should we report this to Master Ancestor? The Master Ancestor that this youth referred to was naturally Empyrean Vast Universe. Shinshanzi said, I simply can't find any clues. It seems we can only trouble Honorable Master. Lin Ming's talent is enough to alarm even Honorable Master and have him take action. We cannot make any mistakes. The consequences are simply too great. In the past Divine Realm First Martial meetings, the champion didn't often have the talent to become an Empyrean in the future. And someone that wasn't an Empyrean level talent simply didn't possess the qualifications to rouse an Empyrean powerhouse. This was the same as a mortal not bothering to help treat ants. As Shinshanzi was thinking about this further and preparing to personally approach Empyrean Vast Universe, a flame lit up in front of him. From that flame, Empyrean Vast Universe's voice echoed out. You do not have to pay attention to Lin Ming. Allow him to rest. As Empyrean Vast Universe spoke, Shinshanzi and the others naturally wouldn't do something as stupid as disobeying him. Shinshanzi left a few disciples in the resting room and allowed Lin Ming to rest. On the arena stage, the battle was in full swing, raging like an inferno. As for Lin Ming, he was lost in a long dream. He dreamt that he was Empyrean Divine Seal. He saw the world from the viewpoint of Empyrean Divine Seal, and also pondered the same questions he did. When Empyrean Divine Seal trained, so did Lin Ming. When Empyrean Divine Seal meditated on the laws, Lin Ming also meditated on the laws. When Empyrean Divine Seal fought with powerhouses, Lin Ming also experienced these brutal battles. These dreamy and elusive sentiments and thoughts imprinted themselves on Lin Ming's heart. These feelings weren't too deep, and these were also comprehensions that belonged to Empyrean Divine Seal. After all, these weren't Lin Ming's comprehensions and didn't necessarily suit him. In fact, he didn't even understand the majority of them. But these still brought a great number of inspirations to Lin Ming. To be able to see the world through the eyes of an Empyrean and also study the laws at that height, to immediately rise to the level of an Empyrean, just who had that chance? Or, it was more accurate to say that Empyrean Divine Seal even surpassed the boundary of an Empyrean. There was no concept of time in these dreams. Lin Ming experienced countless years, and among these memories, he soon forgot them even as they rapidly flowed past him. Finally, there were not many runes that engraved themselves in Lin Ming's mind. Without knowing it, Lin Ming's concept of the 33-layered heavens was improving, evolving. His body, essence, energy, and soul all began to fuse together. This was no longer just a fusion of energy, but a true fusion of essence, energy, and divine. His soul fused together into his flesh and blood combined with his inner world, and his inner world linked together with his spiritual sea. Slowly, a transcendent divine might appeared in Lin Ming's mind. Its name was, the Divine Seal Art. Like this, Lin Ming finally understood just what runes Empire Ian Divine Seal left in his body. This wasn't just law runes and Dao patterns, but also a masterless soul fragment from Empire Ian Divine Seal.
Don't be shy.
This was similar to the masterless soul fragments in the magic cube, but millions and billions of times more valuable. This was the masterless soul fragment of a supreme elder that surpassed an Empire Ian. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Martial World. Chapter 1316 Dream Cultivation. Chapter 1316 Dream Cultivation. At novel being at. Empire Ian Divine Seal's lifetime of knowledge and abilities were all written in the Divine Seal Art. This was a comprehensive cultivation method, not just a single move. It included the countless laws of the divine realm, including the 5 elemental laws, the life laws, yin-yang laws, and so forth. But, the main focus of the Divine Seal Art was the space laws and time laws. These 2 laws were the laws that Empire Ian Divine Seal was most skilled in. When Lin Ming had discovered the ancient Elysium Seal deep beneath Immemorial Imperial City, he found that Empire Ian Divine Seal had used the ancient Elysium Seal as an array to suppress an unknown existence. The sealing technique he used was recorded within the Divine Seal Art. Lin Ming found it hard to imagine just what type of existence was suppressed by Empire Ian Divine Seal's Divine Seal Art for 3.6 billion years and still hadn't died. Even though Lin Ming had now inherited a tiny incomplete soul fragment of Empire Ian Divine Seal, he still didn't have any memories of this. Like this, Lin Ming was lost in a deep sleep, constantly experiencing the memories left behind by Empire Ian Divine Seal. And on the arena stage, the battles were carrying on. In Xiao Moxion and Frost Dream's match, Frost Dream had defeated Xiao Moxion without any problems. At this point, only Frost Dream and Han Kai still had unbroken winning streaks. The third match of the second round was Jun Blue Moon against Dragon Fang. Many people were looking forwards to this battle. Although the 2 of them had lost to Lin Ming, the disparity wasn't too great, especially with Jun Blue Moon, who had withstood Lin Ming's heavenly Dao judgment without suffering any injuries. As soon as Jun Blue Moon stepped on stage, he used his yin-yang laws. However, these laws were seen through by Dragon Fang's 3 lives pupils. Then, Dragon Fang suppressed Jun Blue Moon. Even Jun Blue Moon's finishing move, the 64 yin-yang trigram sword, was seen through by Dragon Fang's all existence to void. However, Jun Blue Moon was extremely tough. Although he was suppressed, he still wasn't defeated. The 2 brutally fought for an hour, exchanging over 1,000 moves and wounding each other again and again. They slowly began to reach their limits, but in the end, Jun Blue Moon's endurance proved to be superior. With a small advantage, Jun Blue Moon took the lead and won a hard-earned victory against Dragon Fang. This difficult victory showed that the 2 youths were individually matched. Who won or who lost, luck and their current condition played an extremely large role. Thus, the second round in the first group of 6 people ended like this. Even so, Lin Ming still hadn't woken up. Vast Cosmos announced the beginning of the third round. This round should have been where Lin Ming and Frost Dream battled, but because Lin Ming had fallen into a deep sleep, Frost Dream drew a bye. This left behind Han Kai, Dragon Fang, Xiao Moxion, and Jun Blue Moon still competing. In truth, among these 4 people, most of them had already fought, thus there weren't many matches left. The 2 matches for this round were Han Kai against Jun Blue Moon and Dragon Fang against Xiao Moxion. Compared to the last matches, these were much less anticipated. Frost Dream hasn't gone on stage. I wanted to watch Frost Dream fight Lin Ming. Some audience members knew that Frost Dream had drawn a bye and were somewhat dissatisfied. Frost Dream was the dream lover of many heroic young elites. They all wanted to see Frost Dream in action. Even if there wasn't any suspense in the match between Frost Dream and Lin Ming, they still wished to see her roll over her opponents with absolute strength. It could only be said that Frost Dream was too popular. Compared to Frost Dream and Xiao Moxion, Lin Ming simply didn't have much support. It doesn't matter if Frost Dream fights Lin Ming or not, it's just a small interlude, Frost Dream will win no matter what. The only one who can truly compete with Frost Dream here is Han Kai, but I think that Han Kai has higher chances of losing. Just look at when Frost Dream fought Dragon Fang. She defeated him without much effort. Speaking about it, what's going on with Lin Ming? Are his injuries really that heavy? An Empyrean Heavenly Palace shouldn't be lacking in medicines, right? With all sorts of wonderful medicines at his use, he still didn't immediately recover. It must be a soul injury. Han Kai is a kind and merciful person, so he should know what his limits are. However, Lin Ming wanted to show off his strength, and even though he knew he wasn't Han Kai's match, he still used that World King level minus Samsara path to struggle with Han Kai's transcendent divine might, the Wheel of Samsara. How could a World King level cultivation method possibly triumph over a transcendent divine might? There is a gap in cultivation methods and also a gap in cultivation realms. The result of the match was already decided from the beginning. Even so, Lin Ming wanted to fight, and the aura he displayed was so powerful that it made others feel he wasn't much weaker at all. Finally, all of that caused him to be injured too heavily. This is just a martial arts contest, but he was so reckless. An old man shook his head, his voice filled with regret. A soul injury was not easy to cure. If a martial artist's soul was injured, that was definitely bad news. Luckily, this had happened in vast universe Heavenly Palace. There were many precious soul recovery medicines here, so Lin Ming should be in a much better position. But even so, in this case, if Lin Ming still remained unconscious and missed the third round of matches and allowed Frost Dream to draw a bite, this would be proof that his injuries were extremely heavy. This sort of wound was likely to leave permanent damage behind. To a genius, this was undoubtedly a tremendous loss. It might even affect his future achievements. If he really is heavily injured, then Lin Ming's losses will be great. Isn't Vast Cosmos the referee? How come he didn't stop the match? How could it be so easy? All of these geniuses are difficult to measure with common sense. Even for a half-step Empire Ian, it's impossible for them to determine who is weaker or stronger before they fight. There are bound to be unexpected surprises. This time Lin Ming truly didn't consider the situation. These young ones are far too spirited. As Lin Ming was unconscious, news of his situation spread through the arena. As people heard this, they began to think that Lin Ming had tried too hard to show off in front of Han Kai and had suffered a soul wound because of it. Not even Vast Cosmos was able to cure him. This was the heart of human jealousy, something everyone possessed. As the audience saw Lin Ming suffer, some of them were sorry for him, but some were also gloating at his suffering. For instance, the Spy Dark Holy Lands Nether Limitless was extremely happy to hear this. The deeper Lin Ming's wounds were, the better it was. At this time, deep within Vast Universe Heavenly Palace, Empire Ian Vast Universe said to Empire Ian Divine Dream, "What is wrong with Lin Ming? I don't feel as if his soul has been injured, so why hasn't he awoken after such a long time?" Let alone Empire Ian Vast Universe, not even Empire Ian Divine Dream was able to see through the divine soul mark that Empire Ian Divine Seal left behind. Empire Ian Divine Dream shook her head, saying, "It's hard to say. Perhaps it might have something to do with the time he climbed up the Divine Seal Altar's 33rd step. If he continues to stay asleep, then the tournament will end. He still has a match left with Frost Dream. Do you plan on sentencing Lin Ming to a loss?" Although Empire Ian Vast Universe didn't think that Lin Ming had a chance of winning, it was still too careless to so easily decide someone's defeat. Divine Dream said, "Have Lin Ming placed into a time enchantment, a 1:100 time flow. He should be able to wake up. Characters like him will not fall from the altar so easily, and he still has a long road awaiting him. He will surely pass this trial." As Divine Dream spoke, Empire Ian Vast Universe could only concur. He sent an order to Shinshinzi to have Lin Ming placed into a 1:100 time flow enchantment. Shinshinzi himself was a great world king master, so it was easy for him to lay down such an enchantment. After he set down Lin Ming in a good position, he reached out and waved his hands. 4 jade bunnies leapt out from his spirit beast chart, transforming into 4 beautiful young girls within the enchantment. These 4 young girls all originated from the monster race, and their cultivations were equal to a late revolving core realm humans. They were only a single step away from making a breakthrough. The Jade Bunny clan of the monster race had a naturally docile and gentle temperament. They had fallen into dire straits and were rescued by Shinshinzi. At the time, Shinshinzi just happened to have a spirit beast chart magic tool, so he accepted them as his secret disciples. The 4 of you will be responsible for looking after Lin Ming. Do not allow the slightest error to occur. Until he wakes up, immediately report to me any changes that occur. Yes. Following that, within the time enchantment, the 4 revolving core young girls of the monster race spent every second of the day watching and caring for Lin Ming. Their actions were orderly and meticulous. However, when these 4 young girls entered the enchantment to care for Lin Ming, they never imagined it would be for such a long time. Soon, half a year passed and Lin Ming still remained asleep as before. For such a long time, these 4 young girls constantly stared at the face of a single young man, and their lives were naturally boring. Luckily, Lin Ming had an extraordinarily handsome face with an excellent and dashing temperament. Looking at him all day was a comfortable experience. This continued to 8 months, 9 months. Lin Ming still didn't wake up. If an ordinary person slept for such a long time, their body would have become smelly and covered with sores. However, Lin Ming remained clean and free of dust the entire time. He exuded a hint of masculinity that was pleasant to smell. Thus, these 4 young girls didn't have to do something so embarrassing like wiping down his body or helping him bathe. Slowly, 1 year passed. During this year, Lin Ming constantly comprehended within the samsara world. Immersed in a sea of laws, he forgot time, and forgot all else. He even forgot the memory that he had been struck by the wheel of samsara and was experiencing a long dream. Rather, he thought that this was his life, that this was reality. Every day was spent in non-stop pondering and meditation. Sometimes Lin Ming was like a rock, sitting still for an entire month. Within this dream, his body was surrounded with countless Tao patterns and law fragments. These Tao patterns ran over him like trickling water before flowing into his body and then slowly leaking out from his pores. Everything seemed harmonious, like a perfect cycle. What sort of character was Empire Ian Divine Seal? The runes he left behind contained not only comprehensions of laws but also fragments of memories. How could this be comprehended in several days or even several months? Even with Lin Ming's perception, wanting to thoroughly comprehend these things and reform the divine seal art was extremely difficult. In a year of time, Lin Ming had comprehended only a tenth of the laws that Empire Ian Divine Seal had left behind. He had just barely managed to cross into the threshold of the divine seal art. Beyond that, there were also many laws. However, Lin Ming wasn't able to comprehend them because his boundary was simply far too shallow. Empire Ian Divine Seal's boundary was just far too high. Just this tiny insignificant soul fragment was enough for Lin Ming to enjoy for 100 years, allowing him to meditate on it for 2 or 3 large boundaries. The truth was that this was something that only Lin Ming could do. If someone else were here, then even if they were a top extreme character like Han Kai or Jun Blue Moon, they would still be powerless when facing Empire Ian Divine Seal's laws. This was because they had yet to comprehend the concept of the 33-layered heavens. It was also because of this point that Lin Ming was able to obtain Empire Ian Divine Seal's inheritance. Tip: you can use left, right, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Martial World. Chapter 1317 Cultivating the Divine Seal Art. Chapter 1317 Cultivating the Divine Seal Art. Another year and another month passed. Deep in meditation, Lin Ming suddenly opened his eyes. He was sitting down cross-legged in a vast and unknown space of the universe, filled with endless mist and dust. With just a glance, everything around him was wrapped in a dim haze. The surrounding space was filled with the chaotic power of space and time. Space twisted, making it impossible to identify just what direction was which, and even the flow of time was in complete upheaval. Deep within this area, even one's normal breathing and heart rate were affected. I've arrived at this space again, Lin Ming whispered to himself, his eyes bright and shining. He had named this space the Divine Seal Space. Every time he entered the Divine Seal Space, Lin Ming was able to become aware of many things. He closed his eyes and silently sensed the rich space and time laws here. This place was like the primordial soup before the universe was formed, and the laws here were still in their most primitive state. Wanting to become aware of these laws was extremely easy. During this year, Lin Ming had already comprehended the time and space laws to large success of the 5th level. It had to be known that before this, Lin Ming's attainments in the time and space laws weren't high at all. He had only been comparable to a genius from an ordinary holy land, far from reaching the level of an Empire Ian descendant like Dragon Fang. He wasn't even able to compare with someone like the Monster Prince. Lin Ming's understandings into these 2 laws were so poor that he couldn't even display them in actual combat, otherwise he wouldn't have needed to summon the heretical god Tree Phantom when he fought the Monster Prince. He had done so because ordinary thunder and fire laws did not possess the ability to resist the Monster Prince's space and time laws. In just a year, Lin Ming had been able to reach large success of the 5th level concepts in the extremely difficult to study time and space laws. He had surpassed the Monster Prince and was only slightly inferior to Dragon Fang. This speed of improvement was horrifying. Moreover, although the boundary of Lin Ming's space and time laws was inferior to Dragon Fang's, the time and space laws that Empire Ian Divine Seal comprehended were of an exorbitantly high level. They were far from what ordinary space and time laws could hope to compare with. As Lin Ming was enlightening himself on the space and time laws here, at this moment, the endless dust in this space began to converge together at a single point. The mist and dust seemed thin, but there was an endless volume. In terms of weight, it could easily surpass 1,000,000 trillion jins. Lin Ming could see this swirling vortex of dust rapidly grow. A swallowing force latched onto him, making him feel as if he were being sucked into this whirlpool. Lin Ming's mind chilled as he rapidly retreated. He watched with his own eyes as this vortex grew increasingly large, finally condensing into a star. Dust and mist forming a star. At novel bean at. Lin Ming was stunned. Is this the forming process of a star? As Lin Ming was thinking over this, that massive star began to burn. An incomparably horrifying light erupted from within it. The total amount of energy in this eruption was so great that the all-out strike of an Empire Ian was completely overshadowed. Lin Ming recalled the time when he had absorbed the blood essence of the ancient phoenix. In that dream world, he had seen the scene of the phoenix undergoing nirvana. That phoenix had been bathing within the blazing hot core of a star, its body in the process of being reborn. Without a doubt, this was a sun. Am I witnessing the formation of a sun? Lin Ming thought. He could feel the fire origin energy around him being stirred up, becoming more and more hot. Because of the amount of heat that this sun was releasing, the surrounding temperature was so high that even metal essence would instantly turn to steam. If a giant meteor were to fall into this sun, it would quickly be melted away, vanishing into nothing. Lin Ming didn't retreat. As he faced this sun, he began to slowly realize the fire laws. His fire laws had been stranded at the 5th level concept for an extremely long time. He hadn't yet been able to trace the threshold to the 6th level concept. This also caused Lin Ming's laws to be at a much lower height than those of Dragon Fang and the others. And Lin Ming was well aware that the 6th level concept was yang flames, in other words, the fires of a sun. The first 4 levels of the fire laws, whether it was burning heat, annihilation, creation, or manifestation, these were fires of the mortal world. As for the 5th level fire laws, that was virtual fire. The flames of jealousy, boiling anger, overflowing rage, heated hatred, all of these were flames transformed from the human mind. They could be called spiritual fires. Then, upon arriving at the 6th level laws, it was the fires of the sun. The fires of the sun had an essential difference from fires of the mortal world. The fires of the mortal world produced flames from burning materials, but as for the fires of the sun, that was similar to releasing energy and flames from completely annihilated matter. This sort of absolute annihilation produced a power thousands of times greater. A phoenix's nirvana meant to undergo nirvana within the center of the sun. A grown-up phoenix would choose to undergo nirvana in the center of a blazing star. The more powerful the phoenix was, the more terrifying the star they chose. Only when facing a true sun could one comprehend the real 6th level concept of the fire law's young flames. But now, with the current Lin Ming's cultivation, it was still far too early for him to thoroughly comprehend young flames. It was simply impossible. Even so, if he managed to trace upon the threshold of the concept of young flames and add a bit of that power to his fire laws, then there would be no comparison between his moves before and after. The sun became increasingly bright and blazing. Lin Ming felt his entire body burning, even as he was constantly enlightening himself on everything happening. At this time, the sun rapidly grew as if it would explode at any moment. Lin Ming was bewildered. He could feel that this sun was about to collapse, so he rapidly drew backwards. In this illusory virtual space, his speed was extraordinarily quick. He soon retreated a million miles back. And at this time, the sun suddenly detonated with an incomparably terrifying divine light, seeming as if the entire universe would be swallowed up. With an explosion of sound, dreadful waves of heat destroyed everything and even the void was shaken to the point of collapse. In that moment, Lin Ming thought he had died. It was impossible for a human to resist such a horrifying explosion. Terrifying flames swept over Lin Ming. Lin Ming took a deep breath. He was certain that if this weren't a virtual space, he would have already turned to ash just now, even if he were another million miles farther away. The flames gradually dissipated. The sun was already destroyed. It began to gradually collapse, its volume rapidly becoming smaller. It eventually shrank a trillion times smaller. All of that matter, light, space, and time, everything was sucked into it. Slowly, the sun evolved into a star of absolute darkness. Lin Ming knew that this star, according to Empire and Divine Seal's viewpoint, was called a black hole. Every black hole had a very small radius of space around it that formed an absolute horizon. Within the Divine Seal art, this space was called the black hole horizon. It was impossible for any matter that fell into the black hole horizon to emerge again. This was an absolute enchantment of time and space. Even if an Empyrean were to fall into it, they wouldn't be an exception. The black hole horizon destroyed all matter, space, and time. It was the end point of all space and time laws. As for Empyrean Divine Seal, he had cultivated the space and time laws to the boundary of a black hole. He was able to have space and time form a black hole. This was also one of the moves within the Divine Seal art when it was cultivated to an extremely high boundary. By creating a black hole and using the absolute space and time laws to seal away all, even a divine god would be permanently sealed, unable to escape. Divine Seal, seal the divine. This was where Empyrean Divine Seal and the Divine Seal ARTS name originated from. There was no exaggeration in these names either. In the past, Empyrean Divine Seal truly did possess the ability to seal away gods. This was because he was an existence that had surpassed an Empyrean. That was the realm of true divinity. It was naturally impossible for Lin Ming to practice to this boundary, but if it was just reproducing a tiny bit of the black hole horizon's charm, he was still able to barely accomplish that. Witnessing the creation of a black hole with his own eyes had the greatest benefits to Lin Ming's comprehension of the Divine Seal art. Lin Ming sat down before this black hole, recalling everything that had just happened. To seal off the space, everything that enters will not be able to break through that cage. To seal off time, everything that falls into the black hole horizon will fall into an eternally timeless moment, locked into a single moment of forever. Their body will stop for all time. With all of this combined together, with matter, time, and space compressed to the limit, that is what it means to truly seal something. As Lin Ming spoke, all sorts of changes occurred within his inner world. In his body's inner world, all of the world power and all of the energy gathered together, slowly forming a whirlpool. Lin Ming was using the energy within himself to simulate the formation of a sun. In cultivating the Divine Seal art, the symbol of truly beginning training in it was to form a miniature black hole in one's inner world. All future practice would center around this miniature black hole. However, forming this miniature black hole was extremely risky. If one's foundation was lacking, not only would that miniature black hole not form, but their inner world would directly collapse because it wouldn't be able to withstand the sudden changes in energy. Although Lin Ming was now sleeping, the process of forming a miniature black hole was truly occurring in reality. The real world was in sync with the dream world. If there was a single mistake, then Lin Ming's inner world would crack apart and he really would die. This process was not hurried at all. Just like the birth, growth, and death of a sun, or the formation of the miniature black hole in the body, that process needed the accumulation of time and continuous evolution. And at this time, 400 days had already passed. That was 4 days in the outside world. The first martial meeting tournament had basically ended 2 days ago. There were only 2 matches that had yet to be fought. One was Frost Dream against Han Kai, and the other was Frost Dream against Lin Ming. Now there had been a pause for 2 days. The audience had long been impatient with waiting. What's going on? How come Hankai and Frost Dreams showdown hasn't begun yet? Are they fighting today? They couldn't be playing with us, right? The several 100 million spectators present were all anticipating watching Hankai and Frost Dreams battle. That would surely be the most splendid battle of the first martial meeting. I heard that the organizers originally intended for Frost Dream to first fight Lin Ming before the battle between Frost Dream and Hankai, but since Lin Ming was severely wounded and hasn't awoken yet, the competition was delayed for a few days. Of these two matches, Hankai against Frost Dream should have been at the very end. It was the prime showdown of the first martial meeting and should have been the last battle where the champion was decided. However, because Lin Ming's soul was grievously wounded and he had fallen into a deep sleep, the battle between Lin Ming and Frost Dream had been delayed. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Martial World. Chapter 1318 The Climactic Battle. Chapter 1318 The Climactic Battle. They are waiting for Lin Ming to wake up and compete with Frost Dream before they continue with the final battle. There must be some mistake. As many spectators heard this, they were immediately roused to anger. Many of them had come to the first martial meeting specifically to watch Frost Dream, not Lin Ming. What did it matter to them if Lin Ming finished his matches or not? Moreover, Lin Ming had injured himself because he was trying to show off. If he missed his matches because of his wounds, how could anyone but himself be blamed? The referees must have gone senile. If Lin Ming doesn't wake up for a month, does that mean we have to wait for a month? If he doesn't wake up for 2 months, do we have to wait for 2 months? Also, does anyone even think that Lin Ming can defeat Frost Dream? Frost Dream is someone who is said to far surpass Hankai, and Lin Ming lost miserably to Hankai, even suffering severe soul wounds in the meantime, so how could he possibly battle Frost Dream? They want us to take such a long break just to wait for him to fight a little teaser match. This is the intent handed down by the two great Empire Ians. If you have complaints about how this first martial meeting is being conducted, then why don't you go and bring it up with them? As someone said this, the heroic young elite who was speaking before suddenly shut up. Go and complain to an Empire Ian. He wouldn't do that if he had 100 times the courage. Why would an Empire Ian bother with the ideas of someone so unimportant? They wouldn't even bother glancing in his direction. I heard that Lin Ming was placed in a time enchantment. 1 day out here is numerous days inside. He should wake up soon. Time enchantment. Is that okay? If he hasn't woken up even after spending several months inside, then what's going on? Is he dead? Many people were dissatisfied with the current situation, but there was nothing they could do. Then, like this, 5 days passed. From the moment when Lin Ming entered the time enchantment, 1 year and 3 months had passed. It's almost been 500 days. How come Lin Ming still hasn't awakened? Deep within Vast Universe Heavenly Palace, Empire in Vast Universe frowned. It was clear that Lin Ming was suffering some sort of extremely complex situation, but his time deep in slumber had surpassed Empire in Vast Universe's estimations. Divine Dream, could there have been something that happened to Lin Ming that damaged his spiritual sea and caused him to not be able to wake up? Divine Dream was silent for a moment before slowly saying, have your disciple adjust the rate of the time enchantment to 1:150. Also, there is no need for Hankai and Frost Dream's competition to drag on for such a long time. Once Lin Ming wakes up, he can compete with Frost Dream. Divine Dream's words affirmed that Lin Ming would definitely wake up. Empire in Vast Universe could only nod his head. The reason that Divine Dream stepped forwards to conduct this first martial meeting was to a large extent because of Frost Dream. She also insisted that Frost Dream fight each and every great battle. And towards Lin Ming, Divine Dream had a faint premonition that his deep slumber was related to the Divine Sea Altar and wasn't as simple as it seemed from the outside. Like this, Lin Ming would surely become a good match for Frost Dream. After Shinshinzi obtained the orders from above, he sped up the flow of time in the enchantment to 150 times. Within a time enchantment, the more exaggerated the flow of time was, the more unstable the laws within would be. In a time enchantment that ran 150 times faster than normal, it was hard to enlighten oneself on the laws of the universe because they were simply too chaotic. However, in his deep sleep, Lin Ming was absorbing the laws that Empire and Divine Seal had left behind. Because these laws weren't related to the outside, there weren't any problems. The 4 young Jade Bunny race girls attended to Lin Ming with utter care. As Lin Ming was sleeping, his face was determined and dashing, but his aura was also gentle and soft. From his appearance, it was hard to imagine the great dangers he was experiencing in his dream. In the dreamland space, the sphere of energy within Lin Ming's inner world had expanded to the limit. It was ready to erupt at any given moment. Once it erupted, the impact on Lin Ming's body would be unimaginable. If he couldn't withstand it, then his inner world would completely collapse and he would die. If he was able to withstand it, then after that true essence exploded, he could condense it into a black hole seed and thus begin the first crucial step to cultivating the Divine Seal art. Lin Ming had already condensed the energy sphere for an entire month. Now, he was still adjusting himself, waiting, optimizing the energy to most the accurate proportion. This was an extremely risky step. Without certain assurances, Lin Ming wouldn't play around with his own life. As Lin Ming was cultivating without end, on the arena stage, Han Kai and Frost Dream's climactic battle was soon about to start. This battle certainly had its own gambling bet. Vast Universe Heavenly Palace had already revealed their compensation rate. Frost Dream's victory had a compensation rate of 1.3 and Han Kai's victory had a compensation rate of 2.7. Most people favored Frost Dream, but there were also many people that favored Han Kai. After all, Han Kai was a very low-profile individual, and in every match he fought so far he had always held back and never won in an excessive manner. Thus, it was hard to tell just where the limits of Han Kai's strength lay. Moreover, when Han Kai had fought Lin Ming and given him a severe soul wound, making him fall unconscious until even now, this matter had caused many people to hold Han Kai in even higher regard. Lin Ming was a freak of nature after all, even Xiao Moxian had lost to him. For Han Kai to defeat Lin Ming to such a degree was enough to prove how strong Han Kai was. Also, Frost Dream's compensation rate was simply far too low to have any fun. Even if one put down 1 billion they would only win 300 million, there simply wasn't any meaning to this. Thus, many people bet on Han Kai. Junior apprentice Sister Frost Dream, this poor monk greets you. Han Kai stood on the arena stage, bowing respectfully. Frost Dream's eyes were calm and cold, her clothes floating around her. Even facing Han Kai in what could be called the most important battle of the first martial meeting, her mood didn't change at all. It was as if nothing in this world was able to change that look of hers. Match, begin. As vast cosmos announced this, the several 100 million spectators in the arena all began to wildly cheer. Han Kai took several steps back as a massive golden Buddha chart appeared behind him. A golden spinning halo of light also appeared beneath his feet. This was the Wheel of Samsara. From the very start, Han Kai displayed the Wheel of Samsara. One could see from this just how highly he thought of Frost Dream. This poor monk has heard of Fairy Frost Dream's renowned name for a long time. But, I have yet to have the good fortune of sparring with junior apprentice Frost Dream. This time can be considered as a wish fulfilled. In Han Kai's eyes, a rare tint of fighting spirit shined. As an ascetic, Han Kai usually lived a modest and pious life. He had a naturally low-profile temperament that avoided disputes and grudges. But, he too was a young heroic elite. To meet a similar opponent, that was something to feel excited over. This was what it meant to find a perfect rival, there was nothing better than that. Frost Dream's entire body flowed with dreamy streams of water. She was using her divine dream space. Up until now, Frost Dream had only used 3 moves to remain undefeated in the Divine Realm first martial meeting. One was illusions, the second was the ruling spirit art, and the third was the divine dream space. To deal with weaklings, Frost Dream only needed to glance at them to have them be lost in illusions and achieve instant victory. But to deal with powerhouses like Xiao Moxian and Dragon Fang, she merely needed to envelop them in the divine dream space to win. Oof. A cold air began to lift upwards. The entire time this Godstone arena was covered with a shimmering layer of condensed frost. Frost Dream's body floated in the air. Her feet were bare and her icy blue hair danced around her. The divine dream space had covered the entire arena. As long as one stepped in this space, that was the same as stepping into Frost Dream's dream. Within this dream, Frost Dream was God. All within it had to withstand the judgment of her will. Zayu Zayu Zayu. Vicious nightmare beasts began to appear within the divine dream space, one after another, all of them madly roaring towards Han Kai. Han Kai gathered his palms together, a smile on his face. The divine dream space is truly magnificent. Then, this poor monk will make his move. At novel being at. As Han Kai spoke, the Wheel of Samsara beneath his feet shot outwards, turning into a massive dermic wheel that hurtled into the sky towards Frost Dream. Ka. The dermic wheel rapidly spun. As it flew forwards, all of the nightmare beasts it passed were cut apart, their blood sprinkling down. If any of these nightmare beasts were chosen, any one of them had the ability to enter the top 20 rankings of the first martial meeting. But in front of Han Kai's Wheel of Samsara, they were nothing more than golems of mud, easily cut down. In an instant, the Wheel of Samsara had arrived in front of Frost Dream. The Wheel of Samsara was both a material attack and soul attack. But, Han Kai was well aware that soul attacks would have no effect on Frost Dream. He could only rely on a material attack. As the audience saw the Wheel of Samsara about to cut Frost Dream in half, many of her supporters, even though they knew that she had yet to reveal her true strength, cried out in sheer horror and alarm. This was still a transcendent divine might, and after being sent out by Han Kai, its strength could be imagined. In this critical situation, Frost Dream simply stretched out her slender right hand. Infinite dreams, manifest a stone wall. In that instant, endless starlight gathered into Frost Dream's hand and a common-looking stone wall rose straight from the ground. From the start when there was nothing on the ground, it only took 1,000th of an instant for a 100,000-foot high wall to rise into the world. In that moment, a 100,000-foot high cliff had appeared in front of Frost Dream. This stone wall was impossibly high and dreadful. It emitted a vast and boundless aura. Atop this stone wall was a massive ghostly head that looked incomparably fierce. It looked down at the world and grinned demonically. Compared to this terrifying stone wall, the Wheel of Samsara looked like nothing but a tiny glass plate in front of a solid oak door. It was simply unworthy of mentioning. Bang! The Wheel of Samsara cut into the stone wall. The dermic wheel spun around, crushing stone and sending shards of rubble flying everything, causing a toothacheing sound to echo outwards. Finally, as the dermic wheel cut in just over halfway, it lost all power and thoroughly disintegrated. As the audience saw this, they were all shocked. Just what kind of force was this? The power of Hankai's Wheel of Samsara was evident to all. Lin Ming and Xiao Moxion had both lost to this move. But in front of Frost Dream, it was so easily broken. Frost Dream is too terrifying. Within her Divine Dream space, she is invincible. That divine wall was instantly created by her using the Divine Dream laws. If she can make a divine wall, she can also make divine swords, divine spears, and anything else she wishes. Whether it is attack or defense, she has reached the limit in all aspects. If I hadn't seen that Wheel of Samsara before, I would never have known how powerful it was. Even so, it is still useless in front of Frost Dream. Yes, the Divine Dream space is far too heaven-defying. Anyone that dares to fight Frost Dream within it is sure to lose. Hankai should have other methods, but I think that whatever he does is likely to be useless. In just the first exchange, Frost Dream had suppressed Hankai's transcendent divine might. As she did this, she had revealed the great strength of the Divine Dream space. It was simply a perfect offensive and defensive system. Tip: you can use left, right, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Martial World. Chapter 1319 Dreams of Immortal Melody. Chapter 1319 Dreams of Immortal Melody. Domain type martial skills were extremely rare for martial artists. To obtain just a single one could raise a martial artist's strength a great deal. However, to those extreme geniuses that were able to stand on the stage of the first martial meeting, having a single domain wasn't unusual at all. There was Hankai's Samsara domain, Ram Saber's Saber King domain, Lin Ming's Grand Mist space, and so forth. But until now, the undisputed number one domain was Frost Dream's Divine Dream space. Just seeing it made one feel as if there was no way to rival it. This was also reasonable. Ignoring the fact that Frost Dream had the deepest cultivation, in terms of ranks of transcendent divine mights, only Lin Ming's Grand Mist space was able to compare with the Divine Dream space. However, Lin Ming's Grand Mist space was incomplete and Frost Dream's Divine Dream space was complete. From this alone, one could see the clear difference between the two. And Frost Dream wasn't old either. She was still 3 years younger than Hankai. This left everyone confused. Just what sort of unique lucky chance did she encounter, or what sort of singular physique did she possess that allowed her to reach this step? Within the Divine Dream space, that 100,000-foot divine wall had already disappeared. Hankai looked at Frost Dream and said with admiration, the Divine Dream domain truly lives up to its reputation. This poor monk can only try his best and use the Lotus Heart bow die. As Hankai spoke, his hands formed a lotus sign. From between his eyebrows, a golden relic slowly appeared, finally solidifying with a sparkling light. As the Lotus Heart bow die appeared, Hankai's aura changed. His body began to rise upwards. Behind his head, 8 golden rings appeared. When combined with the brilliant golden light between his eyebrows, it was like Buddha had descended to the world. Rumble, rumble, rumble. A golden shining pagoda fell down from the clouds, firmly suppressing the area around Hankai. Even the Divine Dream space fiercely trembled as if it would burst apart at any moment. This was Hankai's 8-section stupa. 8 deities rushed out from the Divine Pagoda and a powerful domain space formed around Hankai. This was the Samsara domain. However, the Samsara domain was too low in rank. It was suppressed by the Divine Dream domain and limited in scope. From the audience's viewpoint, even if Hankai used the 8-section stupa, he was still worse than Frost Dream. It would be extremely difficult for him to win. Hankai waved his staff and the massive golden pagoda came pressing down towards Frost Dream. Like before, Frost Dream simply stretched out a slender hand. In that moment when the 8-section stupa came crashing down, a faint blue haze appeared above Frost Dream's head. This blue light rapidly expanded, nearly instantly transforming into an extremely large icy blue divine hand. This hand was over a dozen miles tall. As it floated above the arena stage, it could be called a hand to cover the heavens. Bang! The 8-section stupa heavily crashed into the divine hand. But that hand steadily cradled the 8-section stupa. As the audience saw this, they all let out cries of shock. In the legends, it was said that a pagoda carrying Empire Ian existed, carrying a pagoda in a single hand. His supernatural might had been unrivaled. And now, Frost Dream's massive hand formed from the Divine Dream space was just like that pagoda-wielding Empire Ian, with seemingly equal force. The 8-section stupa was blocked by Frost Dream's giant hand. Even so, Hankai didn't panic. He began to murmur Buddhist sutras as the point between his eyebrows started to shine with a bright light. Buddhist symbols flew out from his body, recklessly dancing about in the air. These Buddhist seals did not fly towards Frost Dream, but towards the area around the giant hand. They settled down in the air like little flags, forming a great ceiling array formation. What is Hankai doing? I don't know. The heroic young elites present simply weren't able to understand what was happening. Even those older masters weren't sure. Although their strength far surpassed Hankai's, in terms of perception and skill in observation, they weren't necessarily any better than an eternally talented youth like Hankai. Hankai linked his fingers together, instantly forming dozens of seals. These seals submerged into the void, and in that moment, the giant hand in the sky began to dim down. 8-section stupor, 8 gates golden lock. Hankai shouted out loud. Then, those 8 deities on the 8-section stupor flew out, surrounding Frost Dream and turning into runic locks that sealed her within. For a time, the divine dream space violently trembled as if it was about to be torn apart. There was even a fissure that ran down the giant hand, seeming as if it would burst apart at any moment. As Frost Dream saw this, her normally indifferent complexion finally changed just the tiniest bit. A trace of surprise appeared in her eyes. You have seen through my divine dream space. Frost Dream's voice was tranquil and calm, beautiful to the senses. Her face was surrounded by a hazy mist, similar to clouds that covered the night moon. It was an ethereal and breath-stealing sight. Junior apprentice Sister Frost Dream is too exaggerated. This poor monk does not possess the ability to see through the divine dream space. However, this poor monk believes that even though this divine dream domain is the dreamland of Junior apprentice Sister Frost Dream, and although Junior apprentice Sister Frost Dream is like a god within this space, it is still impossible for you to create anything you wish or manipulate the laws as you please. Otherwise, you simply would have needed to imagine an empire and this little monk would have instantly lost. Thus, this little monk carefully observed Fairy Maiden and discovered that whether it was nightmare beasts that were created, or divine walls, or massive hands, the truth is that these things do not come from thin air, rather, you have used a special type of energy that exists within the divine dream space to form them. It seems this is called divine dream energy. And everything that surpasses the upper limits of this energy cannot be created. So, this poor monk used the 8-section stupor to force Fairy Maiden to use over 90% of the divine dream energy available to resist it, gathering it in a single location within the divine dream space. Then, by locking it with these 8 golden chains, the circulation of the divine dream energy has been sealed off. If so, this sealed off divine dream space has lost all significance. Hankai's words were calm and unhurried. But after hearing this, the audience was completely dumbfounded. In just a few moves, Hankai had seen through the weakness of the divine dream space. The 8-section stupor he sent out just now was not meant to attack Frost Dream, because he had already expected that an attack of this degree would be useless. Rather, his goal was to force Frost Dream to gather that divine dream energy within the divine dream space and then lock it with those 8 golden chains. If so, Frost Dream would be like a bird without wings, posing no threat at all. At novel bean at. This seemed simple, but if one didn't possess the powerful abilities and sealing arrays of Hankai, then even if they knew the weakness of the divine dream space they still wouldn't have been able to do anything about it. Everyone praised Hankai's calm and keen fighting sense. This ability came from over 30 years of hard work and training. So that's how it is. Senior apprentice Hankai's eyesight is indeed amazing. Even I have to admire your methods. However, my divine dream space is not limited to just this. As Frost Dream spoke, a lotus flower appeared beneath her feet. At the same time, she took out an icy blue zither from her spatial ring. This zither was crystal clear, shimmering with a faint light as if it were carved from the purest ice. This zither had 18 strings and was also decorated with the carved image of a goddess. This was clearly Frost Dream's magic tool. Before now, Frost Dream had only used a lotus flower weapon, she had never taken out this zither. Frost Dream gently held the zither and sat down atop the lotus. Her slender fingers lightly caressed the zither strings. A divine zither sound appeared, rushing like rivers and lakes, like a song from the highest heavens, leaving one lost in dreams. This song is called the Dream's Immortal Melody. If I finish this song, I fear that senior apprentice brother Hankai will have no chance of winning. That is, unless you can end my song. Frost Dream was also a very low-key individual. If she dared to say that Hankai would lose once this song was finished, then she naturally had full confidence in it. Hankai smiled. Junior apprentice Sister Frost Dream's zither skills are truly a wonder of the heavens. This poor monk would love to sit in repose and appreciate it, but if what Junior apprentice Sister Frost Dream says is true and I will lose once this song is finished, then I can only make the first move. I apologize for trying to destroy such a beautiful song. Hankai summoned the Wheel of Samsara once more. The golden light between his eyebrows burned even brighter. This Wheel of Samsara was 10,000 feet in diameter, able to block the skies. Downfall of the 6 paths. Hankai formed a lotus sign with his hands. The relic between his eyebrows floated into the Wheel of Samsara. In that moment, 6 figures appeared within the Wheel of Samsara. These 6 figures were all different. Among them, there was one who was covered completely in blood. Their body was broken and torn and they revealed blood-stained bones in several places, as if they had crawled up from the depths of hell. There was one that had a fierce expression with 3 heads and 6 arms, the arms carrying a vicious halberd, large axe, copper hammer, iron needle, and other such crude instruments of destruction and torture. There was even one whose body shined with a golden light and had a great golden circle floating behind them, just like a living Buddha. These 6 figures came from the path of hell, the path of hungry ghosts, the path of beasts, the path of Asura, the path of humanity, and the path of heaven. These were the 6 paths of Samsara. As these 6 figures appeared, they all hurtled towards Frost Dream. Frost Dream's appearance was calm and unperturbed. Her hand stroked the zither and her fingers nimbly plucked at the strings. All sorts of incomparably marvelous and gorgeous sounds came into existence. These sounds gathered around Frost Dream, transforming into an extremely beautiful drawing. This was a lush, verdant forest. Snow-capped mountains appeared in the distance. It was the beginning of spring, and with the melting of snow and ice, streams of bubbling water flowed down into springs. At this time it was already night. A round full moon hung high in the skies, sprinkling the world with a cold and alluring moonlight, wrapping the universe in strands of mercurial silver. This beautiful scene was mesmerizing to the eyes, leaving one besotted. It was unimaginable that such a beautiful scene could be used to kill others. This is the immortal melody Pure Lands. Someone cried out from off the arena stage. In the mortal world, there were extremely skilled zither musicians who could use their songs to express the complex feelings and scenery of stories. They could use their music to depict beautiful images, making others feel fully immersed. But in the world of martial arts, a musician with a deep cultivation could truly possess the ability to transform that zither song into the most beautiful scenery. No longer was the imagination of the audience required. Rather, this scene clearly appeared. The zither music formed a domain, manifesting all the emotions and beauty of that song. This was the immortal melody Pure Lands. It's not that simple, this isn't just the immortal melody Pure Lands. Rather, Frost Dream has used the divine dream space and superimposed that with the immortal melody Pure Lands, creating a whole new domain, a domain that has a might which far surpasses the original divine dream space. This is a truly terrifying domain. Now, what Frost Dream is playing is not the sounds of the zither but sounds of the Dao. Among the spectators, there were many extremely experienced old masters. An old man sighed with emotion. The Divine Dream Domain was originally a Dreamland domain skill, except that it was able to substantialize those dreams into reality. As for the immortal melody Pure Lands, it was also the same. It was able to substantialize illusions. With both complementing each other, once combined, their strength was hard to imagine. Of course, wanting to fully fuse them together was extremely difficult. Unless one was extremely gifted, it was impossible to combine domain skills. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters.
I don't have enough spirit. Your strength fails.
be shy.
It cannot be done.
Sweet revenge. Not ready yet.
Martial World. Chapter 1320 The Final Pass. Chapter 1320 The Final Pass. For Frost Dream to possess such talent was simply unbelievable. The hundreds of millions of people present had no idea how Frost Dream was so powerful. If a normal extreme genius was born in Divine Dream Heavenly Palace and was personally guided by Empire Ian Divine Dream, they still wouldn't be able to grow to such a degree. Frost Dream was far too mysterious, no one knew just what secrets she was relying on to grow. Standing deep within the immortal Melody Pure Lands, Frost Dream seemed as if she was in a completely different space and time. Even though she was standing there, it was like she was separated by the vast river of time, simply unable to be touched. When Hankai's 6 phantoms broke into the immortal Melody Pure Lands, water splashed into the skies. The phantoms from the 3 evil paths, the path of hell, the path of hungry ghosts, and the path of beasts, were all purified by these waters, their bodies instantly vanishing into nothing. As for the Asura phantom that was neither good nor evil, it completely paused. Its once wild eyes lost all their light. The phantoms of the path of heaven and path of mortals still rushed towards Frost Dream. As for Frost Dream, she simply switched her tune and a completely different sound emerged, turning into a brutal Buddha-slaying song, filled with murderous intent that rushed forth, splitting apart the earth and heavens. A terrifying killing intent filled this music, as wild and crazy as a rabid wolf. Even though the spectating young elites were dozens of miles away, in the face of this murder-filled sound, all of them found it hard to withstand this pressure. It was like their bodies could collapse and their organs break apart at any moment. After the phantom from the path of mortals entered the immortal Melody Pure Lands, it emitted a sound like shattering glass as it was forcefully shattered by that savage dirge. As for the phantom from the path of heaven, it was clearly much stronger. It forcefully resisted that tremendous killing intent and shot towards Frost Dream. Frost Dream's expression was indifferent. As the phantom from the path of heaven rushed at Frost Dream, her hand swiped across the strings. Then, 18 strings shot out, and with a popping sound the phantom was pierced through 18 times. It emitted a painful growl before disintegrating with a loud explosion. Like this, the 6 phantoms were all killed off by Frost Dream. The entire process appeared easy and simple, as if there hadn't been any difficulties at all. Moreover, when this was accompanied by the beautiful picturesque scene of the immortal Melody Pure Lands, it was like Frost Dream wasn't killing these phantoms, but purifying evil. As all of this was done, Frost Dream's expression was calm. She still quietly played her zither as before. All of her energy was placed into playing her zither, as if nothing around her was able to influence her. She had played 2/3 of the Dreamzil immortal melody. After the final third, the song would be completed. Frost Dream said that as long as the Dreamzil immortal melody was completed, Hankai would absolutely be defeated. Many people in the audience wanted to know just what would happen once the Dreamzil immortal melody reached its end. Does Hankai have some other method to stop the Dreamzil immortal melody? Many people looked at Hankai, waiting to see if he had another final last resort. He shouldn't. During Hankai's battle with Lin Ming, he also used the Lotus Heart Bow Die. At that time, he could be described as going all out against Lin Ming. Now, he even used the 6 paths of Samsara, a technique that is unique to the Lotus Heart Bow Die. I fear that even if Hankai uses another move, he still won't be Frost Dream's match. I want to know just what will happen when the Dreamzil immortal melody is finished. Frost Dream said that once the Dreamzil immortal melody was over, Hankai would definitely be defeated. It had to be said that when the Dreamzil immortal melody wasn't filled with a Buddha-slaying killing intent, it was extremely pleasant to listen to, just like blissful sounds from heaven. Moreover, the immortal melody pure lands that were created were as beautiful as a poem. Just looking at it was intoxicating to the senses. Everyone wanted to experience the complete immortal melody pure lands. However, Hankai might not be able to persist until the Dreamzil immortal melody ended. 1,000 feet away, Hankai's complexion was pale. In a situation where he used the Lotus Heart Bow Die along with downfall of the 6 paths, that created a tremendous pressure on him. After watching with his own eyes as Frost Dream's Dreamzil immortal melody began percolating with its final crescendo of killing intent, Hankai smiled, "I admit defeat." These words were not loud, but they spread through the entire audience. The audience, although they had long expected this result, were still somewhat disappointed as they listened to Hankai to not be able to listen to the complete Dreamzil immortal melody and see just what phenomenon would occur at the end was truly regrettable. Frost Dream is too terrifying. Hankai actually couldn't persist until Frost Dream finished the Dreamzil immortal melody. Frost Dream's strength has already far surpassed those of her generation by an unbelievable degree. I really have no idea how she managed to cultivate to this state. I hear she is only 35 years old. 35 years. Compared to the 100 million years of life that an Empire Ian lived, that was a time span unworthy of mentioning. If it were converted to mortal terms, that wouldn't even be a baby that was an hour old. Her future was limitless. In the contestant area, John Blue Moon quietly looked at Frost Dream, deep in thought. When he and Frost Dream fought, he had also been defeated. At this time, an old voice sounded out in John Blue Moon's mind. Blue Moon, Frost Dream is no mortal. I fear that within the younger generation, there is no one that possesses the ability to defeat her. You do not need to think about it too much. Work hard and surpass Lin Ming and Han Kai, that is the orthodox path. Those two are people you should still be able to overtake. As for Xiao Moxian, she will be extremely difficult to overcome. She is someone who is loved by destiny and her talent has also reached an incredibly high degree. Even that Dragon Fang isn't someone you can underestimate. He may have lost to you this time, but that is because he has comprehended the three lives pupils far too recently and is only able to open the state of all existence to void. Given enough time, even he may surpass you. This old man apparently understood a great deal about every situation. He even knew about the three lives pupils. I understand, Old Sword. John Blue Moon nodded. For him to refer to someone as Old Sword, it was clearly the artifact spirit in his divine sword. Like this, the Divine Realm first martial meeting had basically ended. There was only a single match left in the tournament, that was Frost Dream against Lin Ming. However, most of the audience didn't care for this match. After all, to them this was nothing more than a passing match for formality's sake, not to mention that Lin Ming might not even wake up. Of course, there were also many people hoping that this match could be fought for several moves. These people were Frost Dream's die-hard fans. They were willing to watch all of Frost Dream's matches, even if it was a match against Lin Ming that held no suspense at all. After Frost Dream defeated Han Kai, her fame had finally reached its peak. Her mysteriousness, her holiness, her beauty, as well as her formidable strength, all of that together caused the countless young elites to go berserk for her. Of course, all of these young disciples, no matter what background they came from, could only secretly yearn for and admire Frost Dream from afar. No one was truly stupid enough to imagine they could one day obtain her favor. Frost Dream was an untouchable goddess in their hearts. They were all well aware that even if they were 10 times stronger or their background was 10 times deeper, it would still be impossible to match up to Frost Dream. The difference was simply too great. Big Sister Frost Dream, have you seen? They're going crazy outside. In the resting room of Vast Universe Empyrean Palace, Xiao Moxian spoke with exaggerated gestures. The first martial meeting finals had ended, but people still hadn't left Vast Universe world, in particular Frost Dream's fanatical fans. They gathered around the resting area hoping to see her beauty once more. Frost Dream only gently smiled. Towards all of these fans that were rapidly chasing after her, she had no feeling at all. She suddenly asked Xiao Moxian, "Little sister, how is Lin Ming doing?" Lin Ming. Xiao Moxian was startled. She had no idea why Frost Dream suddenly cared about Lin Ming so much. I'm not too sure. He seems to be heavily wounded, he still hasn't woken up in the time enchantment. Big sister, how come you're worried about him so much? No reason. Frost Dream lightly shook her head. The reason she asked about Lin Ming was only because her master Divine Dream had said to her that she must fight Lin Ming during this first martial meeting. And at this time, within the time enchantment, Lin Ming had already reached the final stage of his training. He had stayed here for 500 days, nearly a year and a half in total. When Lin Ming entered the time enchantment, he was under 32 years of age. Now that a year and a half had passed, he was 33 years old. Whether it was an unintentional coincidence or the hand of fate at work, the age of 33 years just happened to match with the number of the 33 layered heavens. At novel being at. 1 year for 1 layered heavens. Let's begin. Lin Ming took a deep breath. He had now completed all of his preparations. The only step remaining was the final pass. Within his mind, he had already deduced the divine seal art again and again. He was revolving all of his energy according to the divine seal art. The sphere of energy within his body formed from his true essence and world power began to rapidly inflate. Heretical God Tree. Who? The phantom of the heretical God Tree appeared within Ming's inner world. The power of thunder and fire flashed atop the crown of the tree. Thunder heavenly tribulation, fire heavenly tribulation. Lin Ming had used 2 types of heavenly tribulation at once, plunging them both into that sphere of energy. The power of thunder and fire were the wildest 2 of the 5 elements. Moreover, this was thunder heavenly tribulation and fire heavenly tribulation. The sphere of energy was already extremely unstable. With the massive amount of energy contained within, if Lin Ming couldn't control it, then his inner world would be instantly destroyed. At that time, his fate could be imagined. But now, Lin Ming still wasn't satisfied with the amount of energy before that explosion occurred. He even added thunder and fire heavenly tribulation to the mix. Without a doubt, the explosion would be even fiercer. But, Lin Ming had seen the formation of a black hole, and he knew that the more energy and matter contained within that star before it erupted, the more violent the explosion would be. But at the same time, after that explosion, the gravitational suction force of the black hole that formed would be even more terrifying. A black hole could swallow even a sun. After the power of thunder and fire was absorbed by that sphere of energy, it became increasingly unstable, as if it were about to go crazy and explode at any moment. still not enough. Lin Ming's eyes sharpened. All of his muscles were pulled tight and great drops of sweat were running down his forehead. At this stage, even the smallest error would bring him beyond redemption. The Divine Seal art was a cultivation method created by Empire Ian Divine Seal, so how could it be easy? If even someone with Lin Ming's talent was having so much trouble, then anyone else that attempted this would simply be committing suicide. The energy became increasingly brutal. The sphere of energy was about to lose control at any moment. 3 essences as one. In one breath, Lin Ming poured his astral essence and spirit essence into his inner world. 3 energies gathered as one, barely neutralizing the rampant energy and forming a delicate balance. This was already the final stage and this balance would only persist for a few breaths of time. But to Lin Ming, this was more than enough. He took a deep breath, his eyes shining like stars burning in the deep dark night. Bloom in full, beautiful flower. Tip, you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Martial World. Chapter 1321 Cultivation Great Success. Chapter 1321 Cultivation Great Success. As Lin Ming was thinking this, he released complete control of the energy sphere, allowing it to erupt. For a time, Lin Ming's dark inner world was filled with an endlessly dazzling brilliance, like countless golden divine swords tearing apart all. Rumble, rumble, rumble. A terrifying energy rolled out like turbulent waves, rushing towards the edges of Lin Ming's inner world. For a time, Lin Ming's inner world was forced to withstand an unimaginably great impact, nearly cracking in the process. Atat novel being atat. Ka. Massive fragments of space were torn open. Lin Ming's inner world was brutally torn asunder by this energy, expanding outwards. An unspeakable pain spread through his body. In that moment, he felt as if he were dying. These changes were directly reflected on Lin Ming's sleeping body. His main body suddenly shook as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Bang. The stone bed beneath Lin Ming collapsed, unable to withstand this power. Pieces of stone flew into the air. Within the time enchantment, the 4 young Jade Bunny girls were frightened. As they saw Lin Ming's face whiten, his body shake, and blood seep out of his mouth and nostrils, they were all panic-stricken. Lin Ming had originally been severely injured and had been sleeping for the last year and a half. And now, if anyone saw this they would think he was on the verge of death. Lin Ming's situation became increasingly bad. His face had turned deep purple and now blood was streaming from his ears and eyes. The 4 Jade Bunny girls were scared silly. "You hurry and report this to Senior Shinshinzi. Lin Ming is about to die," a young girl said. She nervously fumbled with a sound-transmitting talisman and lit it. Young girls of the Jade Bunny race were naturally good-hearted and gentle individuals. They had been watching over Lin Ming for the last year and a half, and now that they saw him have such an accident, they were certainly worried about him. Just as the light of the sound-transmitting talisman was extinguished, Lin Ming's body wildly shook. Because his clothes couldn't withstand the impact of his exploding inner world, they were all torn apart. These were top-grade saint artifacts. But under such an impact there was no possibility for these clothes to remain intact. As Shinshinzi heard this news he was shocked. He resolutely reported this to Empire Ian Vast Universe and raced towards the time enchantment as fast as he could. Lin Ming's current status was very special. If something were to happen to him, that would be a loss to the entire martial world. Deep within Vast Universe Heavenly Palace, the light of a sound-transmitting talisman flashed in front of Empire Ian Vast Universe. Millimeter. Lin Ming is severely wounded and vomiting blood. His life is in critical danger. Empire Ian Vast Universe thought that this message would be about Lin Ming awakening, but he never imagined this would happen. Divine Dream. Empire Ian Vast Universe turned to Divine Dream. Divine Dream faintly pressed her eyebrows together before saying, "Let us go and take a look." "That's all we can do." Empire Ian Vast Universe nodded. Lin Ming's situation was extremely complicated. It was hard to imagine just what was happening to him. The 2 Empire Ians flashed and in the next moment they had arrived in the time enchantment. They saw Lin Ming's entire body colored a deep purple with blood leaking from his head. The stone bed underneath him had completely collapsed. "Greetings, Honorable Master." "And greetings, Senior Divine Dream." Shinshinzi bowed towards Empire Ian Vast Universe and Empire Ian Divine Dream. As for the 4 Jade Bunny girls behind him, they all cried out in alarm at these words. How could they have expected that these 2 people that suddenly appeared in front of them would be 2 legendary Empire Ians? 2 Empire Ians had come to personally see Lin Ming, and they even came together. The 4 young girls immediately kneeled on the ground, deeply bowing. The difference between an Empire Ian and a revolving core or divine sea martial artist was even greater than the difference between an emperor and a commoner. It was reasonable for them to deeply bow like this. "What's wrong?" Empire Ian Vast Universe frowned as he looked towards Shinshinzi. Shinshinzi said, "This disciple has just probed Lin Ming. His inner world is completely chaotic right now, and even seems as if it will collapse. This disciple is useless and does not know what is happening. Although this disciple can forcefully stop this change, I believe that would be the incorrect decision. Thus, I quickly enveloped Lin Ming in another time enchantment to delay the changes in his inner world as much as possible before Honorable Master was able to arrive. If a time enchantment could accelerate time, it could also decelerate time. Just as Empire Ian Vast Universe was about to step forwards to check himself, Empire Ian Divine Dream flicked a single finger and melted away Shinshanzi's time enchantment. Divine Dream. Empire Ian Vast Universe was surprised. However, he also knew that Divine Dream had her own reasons for doing things. Empire Ian Divine Dream shook her head, saying, "There is no need to panic. He should be fine." Millimeter. Empire Ian Vast Universe was startled. He probed Lin Ming's inner world with his senses and only felt that there were some unknown changes occurring within him. His inner world had become unfathomably deep, even faintly seeming as if it would swallow his own senses. Although this attractive force was very weak on Empire Ian Vast Universe, it was still enough for him to draw back his senses. This was also because Empire Ian Vast Universe's divine sense was too strong. If it were a martial artist with a lower cultivation, then perhaps their divine sense really would be sucked in by this absorbing force. This inner world is. Empire Ian Vast Universe was startled. Many martial artists had special bloodlines or physiques. For instance, Xiao Moxion's phoenix true form or Hankai's reincarnated Buddha. And every so often, there would be those with strange inner worlds and souls. These variation souls and variation inner worlds weren't too rare. Empire Ian Vast Universe suspected that Lin Ming was also in this sort of situation. Inner world variation. This thought instantly raced through Empire Ian Vast Universe's mind. If so, then Lin Ming really was too heaven-defying. If a talent like him also had a variation inner world, how could other geniuses still live? At this time, within the Samsara dreamland, Lin Ming was still meditating in that vast and boundless space of nothingness. His complexion became increasingly pale, but his halted breathing had subsided. His inner world had been swept over by a wild storm with everything left in a chaotic mess. Besides the heretical god tree, all of the mountains and rivers and lakes and plains were all utterly destroyed. However, above this region, there was an invisible anomaly in space. As light passed near a certain point in the void, it curved, bending around it. Unless one was skilled in the space laws, it would be impossible to see this, because this point was hidden in the void, twisting all light around it. This spot was the black hole seed that Lin Ming had condensed with the divine seal art. A black hole was the most terrifying celestial body in the universe. There was almost nothing that could destroy a black hole. If a black hole fell into a sun, it would eventually swallow that sun, ultimately causing an unimaginable explosion. Lin Ming had simulated the explosion of a firestar with his true essence and then finally condensed it into a black hole seed. Although it was far from truly achieving the level of an actual black hole, as Lin Ming's cultivation rose, the total energy within that black hole seed would become higher and higher, and the traction force would become increasingly terrifying until the moment when all space and time would be sucked into it, finally evolving into an endpoint of all space and time. The moment that Lin Ming's black hole seed had truly formed, he seemed to have opened wide a great and mystical door before him. As this door opened, the aura of the Great Tao blew towards him with indescribable glory. This aura of the Great Tao had an essential difference from the baptism of the heavenly Tao laws one experienced during the crossing of Ninefall. This aura contained the concept of the 33-layered heavens and stood at almost the highest point of all laws. The aura of the endless Great Tao surged into Lin Ming's inner world. Then, his inner world that was reduced to rubble and ruins by the explosion of true essence and energy began to glow with reborn vitality. The explosion of that sphere of energy had been far too terrifying. Even though Lin Ming's foundation was extremely solid, there were still all sorts of ruptured areas within his inner world. Now, all of these damaged places were being repaired by this strength. The fragmented rubble fused into the earth. New mountains rose and new rivers began to flow. An incomparably rich world power condensed, forming origin energy clouds in the skies. Because these clouds were too thick and heavy, they began to rain down with drops of origin energy. This origin energy rain gathered into the dry streams and channels as it fell, turning into fresh and wonderful currents. As the land was watered, plants began to sprout and colorful spirit flowers started to bloom. In that moment, Lin Ming's strength rapidly climbed, reaching unprecedented heights. Afterwards, that vast aura swept out from Lin Ming's body, recklessly spinning around him like heavy mercury. As Empire Ian Vast Universe felt this boundless aura, he was startled. This was clearly the aura of the 33-layered heavens Great Tao. Empire Ian Vast Universe had obtained the remnant soul of the ancient divine seal altar's artifact spirit. It was impossible for him to misidentify this aura. The two Empire Ians as well as Shinshanzi were naturally unaffected by this aura. At most, they were slightly amazed by the vast glory of it. But behind these three masters, the four young Jade bunny girls that were kneeling were baptized by this aura. They fell into a trance, feeling reborn. In just several breaths of time, they had greatly benefited. They even faintly felt as if they would break through to the next boundary. This is. The four young girls flushed red. This was a tremendous lucky chance. It was no longer a question of helping them break through to the next realm, but instead caused the laws within their bodies to change on a qualitative level. This meant that in the future, their martial arts achievements would reach even further heights. They were all excited to the point of wanting to hop around, but with the presence of two Empire Ians here, they stilled themselves. Shinshanzi smiled in understanding. These last 500 days have been hard on you. This can be considered payment in kind, the cause and effects of this world. Shinzi didn't know what happened to Lin Ming, but what he could be certain about was that Lin Ming had undoubtedly experienced a massive lucky chance. His strength had rapidly risen by leaps and bounds. This sort of lucky chance was bewildering. Just a faint aura from Lin Ming's breakthrough alone was enough to greatly benefit these 4 young Jade Bunny girls and increase their potential. Shinzi looked towards Empire Ian Vast Universe, but Empire Ian Vast Universe was actually looking at Divine Dream. He had no idea what was happening within Lin Ming. Is this because of the Divine Seal Altar? Empire Ian Vast Universe always had this guess in his mind. He had refined a replica of the ancient Divine Seal Altar using a fragment of its artifact spirit, and this replica also contained the mystical charm of the concept of the 33-layered heavens. Now, it appeared that the comprehensions Lin Ming gained from mounting the Divine Seal Altar finally began to transform into true strength today. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Martial World. Chapter 1322 Awakening and Exiting. Chapter 1322 Awakening and Exiting. Empire Ian Divine Dream gently nodded, saying, when Lin Ming climbed up the Divine Seal Altar's 33 steps, he withstood the baptism of the ancient concept of the 33-layered heavens contained within it. This baptism greatly affected him, but because the time was too short, the influence from the concept of the 33-layered heavens had to manifest. As time passed, this advantage will become increasingly obvious. Empire Ian Vast Universe shook his head as he heard Divine Dream's confirmation. He said, this is the flow of destiny. I am far from being able to compare to Lin Ming. Although I have luck, I lack destiny. The result is that my work was given as a gift to this junior Lin Ming. As Empire Ian Vast Universe spoke of the concept of the 33-layered heavens, he couldn't help but deeply sigh. At the start, he really had been able to obtain a fragment of the ancient Divine Seal Altar. In terms of luck, Empire Ian Vast Universe was not bad at all. However, even though Empire Ian Vast Universe meditated on the Divine Seal Altar fragment for many years afterwards, he was only able to touch upon the threshold of the 33-layered heavens laws, and wasn't able to transform that into his own strength. As for the Divine Seal Altar fragment, he had later taken that as a foundation to create an Empire Ian spirit treasure. This harvest was not worthy of mentioning in comparison to Lin Ming. If one entered a treasure mountain and returned empty-handed, that was not because one's luck was bad but because one's destiny was lacking. Luck was only a part of destiny. Talent, will, perception, mentality, soul, all of those were equally important parts of destiny. Luck only provided opportunities. Whether one could grasp those opportunities depended on themselves. Empire Ian Divine Dream slowly said, Lin Ming's destiny is truly amazing. If this was in the past, then Lin Ming would eventually develop into a leader amongst Empire Ians. And now, in this great world, Lin Ming even has the smallest of chances of surpassing the boundary of an Empire Ian and becoming a true divinity. True divinity. That's too exaggerated. Empire Ian Vast Universe had a great response as he heard this. Although he knew that Lin Ming possessed heaven-defying talent, the realm of true divinity was something that existed only in myths. Empire Ian Vast Universe didn't even believe that someone like Xiao Moxion had the chance of becoming a true divinity in the future. Even if Empire Ian Divine Dream said smallest of chances, Empire Ian Vast Universe still couldn't accept this. Was becoming a true divinity really that easy? Throughout the endless epochs, how many Empire Ians have failed to become a true divinity? Divine Dream, even you, someone who has achieved the peak in every aspect, aren't you also unable to take that final step into true divinity? Your praise of Lin Ming seems rather too high. Even for someone as talented as Lin Ming, I do not believe that in the past billion years, amongst the infinite lives born in the divine realm and the lower realms, there hasn't been someone similar to him. Aren't Xiao Moxion and Frost Dream also similar in comparison? Let alone the last billion years, even for the last 3 billion years there has never been a true divinity supreme being that has appeared. There have only been stories, and these stories are far too exaggerated, without any credibility at all. Empire Ian Vast Universe was clearly very sensitive to the term true divinity. This was also reasonable. In the legends, it was said that those that stepped into true divinity could refine stars, crush planets, and there were even fables that said that true divinities could live as one with the world, living in everlasting immortality. The former wasn't considered much. Although the increase in strength seemed wonderful, it was still within the realm of acceptability. After all, a powerful Empire Ian could already crush planets. Of course, that was only crushing planets. If they wanted to crush suns that were tens of thousands of times larger than a planet, even an Empire Ian was far lacking. To chase after a stronger strength was the wish and drive of all martial artists. But, what truly enticed an Empire Ian was the promise that they could live in perpetuity. This attraction was simply too great to an Empire Ian. When one cultivated to the realm of an Empire Ian, they truly held control of a world and dominated the lives of trillions upon trillions of people. With all of these before them, how could they willingly accept the end of their own mortality and turn into dust? The path of martial arts was to struggle with the heavens. Every time one made a breakthrough, their lifespan would increase several times over. This was a tremendous lure to many martial artists, driving them to painstakingly cultivate and also one of the greatest motivations that caused them to constantly risk their lives in the most dire of dangers. Divine Dream said, in the past, there indeed might not have been this possibility. But now, in this universe, there truly exists this hope. Not only does Lin Ming have this hope, but so does Xiao Moxian, one could even say her hopes are much greater. As Divine Dream spoke like this, Empire Ian vast universe seemed as if he wanted to say something, but eventually didn't. Even though he was an Empire Ian, he always felt that speaking in terms of the universe seemed far too remote. A true divinity was that something that could truly be reached in this world. Empire Ian vast universe was silent for some time before saying, according to what you say, do you happen to think that Lin Ming might be able to defeat Frost Dream? Empire Ian vast universe also felt the mysterious and exceptional presence around Frost Dream. To every heroic young elite, defeating Frost Dream was a near impossibility. Divine Dream slowly said, Frost Dream surpasses the younger generation by far too much. To compare Lin Ming to Frost Dream is unfair to begin with. She only spoke to hear before not speaking again. Frost Dream was personally raised by Divine Dream. As for what Frost Dream's limits were, only Divine Dream would know. Frost Dream had already surpassed the concept of young elites. At this time, on the ruined stone bed, Lin Ming violently coughed. Every cough was followed by fresh blood. Divine Dream glanced at Lin Ming and flicked a finger, tossing out a crystalline pill. This pill was glittering and transparent, exuding a cold air that made it seem as if it were carved from ice. The pill slowly flew in front of the 4 young Jade Bunny girls. Without any emotion in her voice, Divine Dream said, feed this pill to Lin Ming. Tell him that 2 hours from now, his match with Frost Dream will officially begin. Remember, he only has 2 hours. As Divine Dream spoke, she floated away. Empire Ian vast universe also stepped forwards and disappeared. At this time, Lin Ming slowly opened his eyes. The first image to enter his eyes was those 4 curious Jade Bunny girls. During his 500 days of sleep, Lin Ming had a hazy understanding of what was happening outside. He hadn't fallen into the 100 cycles of samsara without being able to extract himself. Although Lin Ming hadn't been able to compare with Hang Kai, the difference hadn't been too great. He had the ability to resist the wheel of samsara, and although he had fallen unconscious, the truth was that he had voluntarily allowed himself to fall into such a state. Thus, Lin Ming knew that these 4 young girls had looked after him for these past 500 days. Thank you. Lin Ming softly said. Young girls of the Jade Bunny race were docile and gentle, with a timid personality. As Lin Ming spoke to them, they were a bit nervous. What sort of character was Lin Ming? The difference between them was like the heavens and earth. They simply weren't able to accept this. Thanks. As senior apprentice brother Lin, please don't say that, you will scare us to death. A young Jade Bunny girl said, flustered, yes, that's right. Senior Divine Dream left you a message just now. You need to swallow this pill and 2 hours from now, you must go to the arena stage and fight with senior apprentice sister Frost Dream. Fight with Frost Dream. Lin Ming rubbed his forehead. During that long dream, he felt as if he had lived a lifetime of tens of thousands of years. As he recalled it, even the first martial meeting seemed a bit distant in his mind. Millimeter, that's right. I still haven't fought with Frost Dream yet. Lin Ming clenched his fists together. He could feel that his own fists were wet with his sweat and blood, sticky and viscous. He could also feel that he had never been as strong as he was now. When Lin Ming woke up, a considerable amount of time had already passed since the conclusion of Frost Dream and Hang Kai's battle. Over 90% of the audience was still there, not yet having left Vast Universe Heavenly Palace. However, just under 10% of the audience had begun to leave, either having ridden their spirit ships or were preparing to leave Vast Universe World. And at this time, Vast Universe Heavenly Palace sent out news of Frost Dream's upcoming match. What? Frost Dream is coming on stage to compete once more. On a spirit ship that had taken off, some people heard this message passed down from Vast Universe Heavenly Palace. That's too great. Let's return and watch the match before we leave. Many of Frost Dream's fans were crazily excited as they heard that Frost Dream was about to come back on stage. After Frost Dream and Hang Kai's battle, she had entered the palace and had yet to emerge. This left many of her fans that were crowding around the contestant palaces disappointed. But now that they learned they had the chance to see her again, they were definitely delighted. Who is she fighting? A middle-aged man lazily asked. He was the elder leading these young disciples. She's fighting against Lin Ming. The young elite from before said. Lin Ming. He's finally woken up. I heard that he's been in a deep sleep for over a year. If he wakes up now, then it won't be easy, the middle-aged man said, a joking tone in his voice. No one doubted Lin Ming's talent. But in joining the first martial meeting, he had damaged his soul because he was trying to show off. He had been unconscious for over a year now and almost didn't wake up. This caused everyone to feel that it was quite funny. If one were to describe this behavior in a pleasant manner, then they would say he didn't fear the strong and never gave up. If one were to describe this behavior in a coarse manner, then that would be forced to the edge by their own behavior and lacking in foresight. He had nearly died in a martial arts contest. Was there any genius so stupid? Luckily he hadn't died, otherwise that would really have been the greatest joke of all. Although Lin Ming had woken up, many people guessed that there were still some hidden wounds left over. Even with all the precious soul recovery medicines available at an Empyrean Heavenly Palace, Lin Ming had still slept for over a year. How could his soul wounds be light? He's just an impulsive little baby boy, and he also just started recovering from a severe injury. I think that Frost Dream should fight with someone from the older generation instead. If that happened, that might be worth watching. Han Kai was much stronger than Lin Ming, but he had still lost to Frost Dream. He hadn't even been able to last until the end of Frost Dream's Dreams of Immortal Melody before admitting defeat, let alone someone like Lin Ming. Lin Ming likely wouldn't even be able to block a few moves from Frost Dream in his peak state, and he was wounded now too. At novel been at. In the eyes of most people present, this battle would likely end before it started. This caused many of them to lose interest in seeing this fight. As for Frost Dream's fans, they went to see her, not the fight itself. The youth laughed, saying, in any case, I'm going to look at Frost Dream, not her match. Then again, whoever Frost Dream competes with, it will still be the same. Who can possibly defeat her? I must say that I should thank Lin Ming. If he didn't wake up on time, then we wouldn't be able to see her fight again. Tip, you can use left, right, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters.
Still waiting. Your fear betrays. Need more time.
Martial World. Chapter 1323 Frost Dream's Identity.
Not ready yet.
Chapter 1323 Frost Dream's Identity. News of Lin Ming and Frost Dream's upcoming match spread like wildfire. Many heroic youths that worshipped Frost Dream immediately rushed back to the martial arena in droves, hoping to see Frost Dream's figure once more. They would be satisfied with just a glance. Most of these people were young men, very few were women or seniors. The latter people weren't in a hurry to return to the martial arena at all.
So waits you.
They assumed that it would be a complete wreck. If a fight couldn't even last for 3 breaths of time, then there really wasn't any meaning at all. There were even some people that went to ride their spirit ships to return home. In their opinion, the first martial meeting had ended, and this last match was only going through the moves. It could even be said that this final match would ruin the overall prestige of the tournament. Han Kai's battle against Frost Dream had already been spectacular enough. After watching something like that, if they were to watch someone get immediately rolled over by Frost Dream, then that would leave a horrible aftertaste. Finally, only around a quarter of the people, around 100 million, were left in the arena. A great deal of the audience stands were empty. At novel been at. Lin Ming has finally awakened. Not too far from the stage, Jun Blue Moon looked at Lin Ming. He had felt it was strange and unexplainable that Lin Ming's soul had been damaged. His intuition told him that perhaps what happened Lin Ming's soul wasn't something as simple as an injury. There was likely some secret to his soul. His aura is different. Jun Blue Moon was extremely sensitive to changes. Even if Lin Ming was hiding his strength, like a dust-laden divine spear not revealing the faintest glint of its sharp edge, Jun Blue Moon could still feel the difference in Lin Ming's body. He could even feel that Lin Ming's body was like a miniature universe, giving off a profound feeling beyond comprehension. That boy called Lin Ming is quite good. In this last year and a half, his body has truly changed. It seems he's managed to turn his misfortune into a blessing, but, against that little girl Frost Dream, anything he does is useless.
My hatred
From within
is
Jun Blue Moon's mind, the voice of an old man echoed out, his words full of whimsy.
Need more
Old
time.
sword, are you sure? Of course. Who do you think that Frost Dream is? Do you think any ordinary genius can reach Frost Dream's level of strength at the late Divine Sea Realm? Is Han Kai not strong? He comes from Mount Kotala, a sect with an inheritance greater than Divine Dream Heavenly Palace. In fact, you can even call it the strongest background of all. Moreover, he possesses the golden body of the reincarnated Buddha, something that appears only every several tens or even hundreds of millions of years. He has cultivated an unbreakable diamond Vajra body and even possesses the lotus heart Bodhi, the relic of Buddha. From his birth, he began training with all sorts of secret skills, and his body was washed and transformed with all sorts of precious medicines. In his 30 years of torturous cultivation, he abstained from sin and worldly desires and possesses a pure body. His temperament, his talent, his perception, there is nothing that isn't perfect. He can be considered at the peak of all geniuses, and yet against Frost Dream, he lost all the same. As the old man spoke to her, he curled his lips as if he wasn't feeling too well about something. Frost Dream is truly powerful. I am far from being comparable to her. Jun Blue Moon said. In the face of facts, he had to confess that the difference between him and Frost Dream was far too great.
I'm here to help.
Humph, don't look down on yourself so much. As the apprentice of this old man, your future accomplishments will be at least at the peak Empyrean boundary. I even hope that you can borrow this tumultuous era to attack the realm of true divinity. Although it is hard, it is not impossible. Of the first martial meeting's top 6, only Lin Ming and Xiao Moxian just faintly surpass you in talent. As for everyone else, including even Han Kai, you don't need to fear them at all. And for Frost Dream, well, if I'm not wrong, she is simply the same as Empyrean Divine Dream. In order to surpass her boundaries, Divine Dream took the sharpest blade and forcefully sundered her divine soul in half, allowing that half to reincarnate and thus producing Frost Dream. She wants to train Frost Dream to the peak Empyrean realm, and then the two of them can fuse back together. With the deep cultivations of two peak Empyreans condensed as one, she wishes to take that momentum and break through the boundary of true divinity in a single go. That woman is truly ambitious and courageous. As Old Sword said this, Jun Blue Moon's mind shook. Millimeter. Old Sword, are you saying that Frost Dream is the reincarnated half of Divine Dream's divine soul? Highly likely. Their soul fluctuations are nearly the exact same. However, unless Divine Dream is in front of me, I cannot confirm this. I was only able to sense her aura from behind a great enchantment. My current injuries are simply too heavy. Otherwise, if I still had the strength of my heydays, I wouldn't need to fear her at all. But, if my guesses are wrong, how can Frost Dream be so strong? She is simply a replica of Divine Dream during her youth. Moreover, because she had to take far less detours, her strength should even be greater than what Divine Dream was like during the same time of her youth. As Old Sword said this, Jun Blue Moon finally recalled that there were many people who said that Frost Dream was far too similar to Empyrean Divine Dream. The same temperament, the same mystical aura that surrounded them, the same perfection, and even their same formidable strength. If Frost Dream were to stand side by side with Divine Dream, then if one ignored the difference in their cultivations, they would seem like a pair of twin sisters. So that's how it is. If Frost Dream is a young Divine Dream and even possesses all of Divine Dream's memories, then no one can compare with her. In terms of just understanding the path of martial arts and the height in laws, she has already surpassed all boundaries of logic. If she had the memories, then she would be greater than this. Old Sword shook his head. That reincarnation technique that Divine Dream used is a double-edged sword. When Frost Dream reincarnated, she had to experience the confusion of rebirth, and thus her previous memories were forgotten, like treasure deeply buried in her mind. She will have to slowly restore these memories over time. Even so, Frost Dream's strength will increase like she's cheating, all the way up in a straight line. For a junior to contend with her. That is difficult. 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 Old man said difficult 3 times in a row. He wasn't a humble person, but even he didn't believe that his own apprentice, Jun Blue Moon, had even the slightest chance of defeating Frost Dream. At least, before Jun Blue Moon became an Empyrean. Rather, it should be said that Jun Blue Moon could only compete with her once he reached the peak Empyrean realm. Only then would he possess the ability to surpass Frost Dream. Of course, Frost Dream might even have fused back together with Divine Dream at that point, immediately stepping into the realm of true divinity. So that's how it is. It seems this battle between Lin Ming and Frost Dream wasn't fair to begin with. I can't imagine that any sort of miracle will occur. Jun Blue Moon said, regretfully. If Lin Ming and Hang Kai fought again, then Lin Ming might be able to defeat Hang Kai, but to defeat Frost Dream, that was far too difficult. Old Sword sneered. If breaking through to the divine transformation realm is equal to a mortal ceremony of adulthood, then this tournament itself is nothing but a gift that Divine Dream prepared for Frost Dream for her to become an adult. Frost Dream was destined to become the leading heroine of the first martial meeting from the start, and you are only a supporting actor to make her shine even brighter. There was still an hour until the match began. For this final match, Vast Universe Heavenly Palace opened one final gambling bet. Frost Dream's victory had a compensation rate of 1.01, and Lin Ming's victory had a compensation rate of 80. This compensation rate wasn't an exaggeration. If one bet on Frost Dream, they would only earn 1% of their bettings if they were correct. This was truly a speechless and paltry rate. Moreover, there was also a limit on this gambling bet, so one couldn't raise it to an unlimited degree. But that was how things were. Nearly everyone bet on Frost Dream to win. Although they wouldn't earn much, something was better than nothing. Returning only 1%. Isn't this just the welfare of Vast Universe Heavenly Palace? It seems that they won far too much wealth during this first martial meeting. That's right. Because of Lin Ming, I already lost a great deal of Violet Sunstones. That fellow's fight with Xiao Moxian truly ruined many people's pockets. However, even if it's only 1% profit this time, I will still bet on Frost Dream. In the view of many people, this gamble was in truth just Vast Universe Heavenly Palace giving back some of the incalculable wealth they had earned. This could also be considered a tiny gift given back to the spectators at the conclusion of the first martial meeting. 1:80. That seems a bit too exaggerated to me. Lin Ming traced his chin, a self-deprecating smile on his face. Before this, he had already bet a great deal that he would end up in the top 3 rankings. This time, he didn't mind having a little fun with a few more 9 Sun Jades. Lin Ming finally put down 2 9 Sun Jades on his own victory. Even he didn't have full faith he could defeat Frost Dream. 2 9 Sun Jades was enough for a lucky bet. If he lost, then he lost, it wouldn't be much at all. The full 2 hours soon passed. Lin Ming stood on the arena stage, his breath steady, his hands gently caressing the Phoenix blood sphere, and his mind as calm as a placid lake. Not too far away from him stood Frost Dream. She was only casually standing there, but her entire body seemed wreathed in a cold smoke. Her temperament was ethereal and otherworldly, beautiful without flaw. She was like a lotus of ice floating in the fog. Just looking at her, one could feel a cold energy rush towards them.
Still
Lin
waiting.
Ming, you can do it. That's right. Lin Ming, you've got to try your best. Try and continue for at least 3 moves. If you lost immediately, then that would be too boring. Many of Frost Dreams fans were shouting out words of encouragement towards Lin Ming. They hoped that Lin Ming could fight longer so they could see Frost Dream more. Lin Ming ignored all of these cheers. He only lightly bowed to Frost Dream in accordance with the conventions of the Divine Realm First Martial Meeting. Then, he raised his spear. Frost Dream's expression was serene. Beneath her feet, countless ice crystals gathered together, forming an illusory ice lotus. This ice lotus slowly revolved. As Lin Ming looked at this ice lotus, he felt as if his thoughts were being sucked into its gentle spinning. This ice lotus was personally created by Empire Ian Divine Dream. Ruling Spirit Art. As Vast Cosmos announced the start of the match, the ice lotus beneath Frost Dream's feet instantly scattered. Every petal was composed of 7 ice crystals, each as thin as a cicada's wing. However, they shined with a cold light, overflowing with a thick killing intent. This was Divine Dream Heavenly Palace's battle spirit technique. By manipulating objects with one's battle spirit, one could attack from afar with weapons. Whoosh! Countless ice lotus crystals joined together in the air, forming 3 divine swords that chopped towards Lin Ming. Although this was only a casual attack from Frost Dream, it contained a terrifying might. It was weaker than Hankai's Wheel of Samsara, but it wasn't that much worse. It wasn't easy to defend against at all. Everyone thought that Lin Ming would begin to summon the phantom of the heretical god tree or would use Heavenly Dao Judgment. Only like that would he be able to suppress Frost Dream's ruling spirit art. But at this time, Lin Ming simply took a step backwards as a brilliant flame lit up on the Phoenix Blood Spear. Fire Laws. No one thought that Lin Ming would use just his fire laws alone to resist Frost Dream's ruling spirit art. That was too brazen a move. At the moment the ice crystal swords arrived, Lin Ming thrust out his spear. The first 5 levels of the fire laws completely fused together. This attack even contained a hint of Yang Flames. The 6th level concept of the fire laws, Yang Flames. Even if Lin Ming had barely traced upon this threshold and was still incomparably far from truly stepping into it, this still allowed the might of his strike to reach near infinite proportions. Bang! With an explosive sound, the spear light exploded. But, Frost Dream's ice crystal swords were also destroyed. He blocked it. The audience was incredibly astonished. It wasn't strange for Lin Ming to block those ice crystal swords, but what was amazing was that he had done this by just relying on just the fire laws. If I'm not wrong, then Lin Ming's fire laws have touched upon the 6th level concept. How is this possible? Tip, you can use left, right, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Martial World. Chapter 1324 Two Unrivaled Geniuses. Chapter 1324 Two Unrivaled Geniuses. When Lin Ming fought with the Monster Prince and Dragon Fang, his fire laws had reached large success of the 5th level concept. In terms of laws, Lin Ming was inferior to Dragon Fang. In fact, if it weren't for the existence of the heretical god tree, his laws would be even worse than the Monster Prince's. After all, what he comprehended were the strong space and time laws. Now, after just several days of time and a deep slumber of a year and a half, Lin Ming's laws had reached perfection of the 5th level and he had also traced upon the threshold of the 6th level laws. This was a simply inconceivable accomplishment. Moreover, he had been sleeping within a time